Hello, everyone. I think I'm a little late. I'm running like 4 different streams here. Give me a sec. Give me a sec. I'm running 4 different streams. So give me a sec. And I know there's probably a commercial playing for many of you anyway. But let me just make sure that we are up and running in all the places that we need to be up and running in. I appreciate the patience. All right. It looks like we are ready to go. Happy Friday, everyone. And welcome, if you've never been, to a happy hour before. I'm sorry I was a minute or 2 late. I promise I have a good excuse because I had to go to the chiropractor because, listen, so my chiropractor tells me that the reason that my back, okay, fun fact, probably too much information, my back and my left leg are completely effed. Completely effed. And it's been this way for a couple of months. It's actually been this way since February. It got really, really bad. And so I eventually bit the bullet and I started going to the chiropractor. And what my chiropractor tells me is that the reason that my back is so screwed up is because I'm pissed off all the time. I'm apparently pissed off all the time. I've got all sorts of fuzzies on my head. I don't know what's going on there. I'm apparently pissed off all the time, and that is screwing up my back and or my legs. And so I had to actually go to the chiropractor today. Right before this, it was basically, he basically put me in some sort of medieval torture device. And apparently that's going to help my back. But anyway, that's why I'm a few minutes late. I just got home. I just went to the store. I bought my beer. We're going to talk about that. But guys, welcome to Happy Hour. Happy Hour is a stream that I do every week at 3 p.m. I know many of you are new to my channel. Maybe you found me from the Gothics debate. Maybe you're watching on Actively Unwoke right now because I am actually simulcasting this Happy Hour not only on my main channel, but on my second channel, which is Actively Unwoke, and I'm also on Odyssey, and I'm also on Rockfin. So I'm streaming in like 4 different places right now, but most people are going to be on my main channel, which is just my name on YouTube. And what we do at Happy Hour at 3 p.m. usually every Friday is I pick out a diversity training or a whiteness training or some sort of crazy critical race theory nonsense, and we watch it and we comment on it, and I drink. And you can drink too. Anyone can drink during Happy Hour. It is Happy Hour somewhere. Now, today's stream, D. Martin says turn down the volume. Guess what, D. Martin? Guess what? You have a volume on your very own computer that you can turn down, my friend. Turn down your own volume. So today's stream is very special. It is. Because today we are digging into the archives. We are doing an oldie but a goodie. Today's stream is the main bitch herself, Robin DiAngelo. Now, if you are not familiar with Robin DiAngelo, I don't know where you've been. And if you are lucky, if you are in fact unfamiliar with Robin DiAngelo, you should consider yourself to be very, very, very lucky because Robin DiAngelo is one of the queen bees of critical race theory. Now, she did not invent critical race theory. She did not invent it. This is actually a mistake a lot of people make. They think that Robin DiAngelo is the inventor of this. No. She is not the inventor of this. She is merely grifting off of other people's insane invention. And she is the author of White Fragility. She's about to be the author of another forthcoming book, which her new book, you guys know what her new book is about? It's about how white liberals are not doing enough to fight racism. So we'll look forward to that. I'm sure I'm going to have to read it. But this is a training she did a couple of years ago. We're actually going to hear from the horse's mouth. Black Metal Matter says the final boss, fatality. Exactly. George Andre Velasco Nunez says those medieval torture devices are actually great for your back. I hope you get better. Thank you. August Brown says, I had to watch this in class. Of course. I am sorry, August, but maybe this will be a little bit of a better experience for you because in this rendition, we get to not only watch this, but we get to make fun of it and we get to drink. So we've got like the great trifecta. We're gonna eat our vegetables. We're gonna watch what Robin DiAngelo has to say, but we can also mock it relentlessly. And I expect there to be some mocking in the chat today, people. And if you are so inclined, you can also partake of a tasty beverage. You guys want to see what I have in the hopper today for drinks? I actually don't have anything exciting today because I actually had to pick the beer up at the supermarket. I know. We have supermarket beer today, but let me show you what I have. And I've been in a beer mood lately. Like wine, I can't really tell the difference between. Like if it's like a sparkling wine or a red wine or a white wine, I know the difference. But like beer, I am actually a legit beer snob in real life. And so today's options are a Wachusett Blueberry, which is a brewery in Massachusetts. And actually, this was one of the first blueberry beers that I had. And this one is still actually my favorite. So we have a Wachusett Blueberry. We have an Allagash White, which Allagash is a brewery out of Maine, and they've kind of gone very mainstream now, but their Allagash White is very, very good. And then we have the whole backup, the old standby, the beer that you can get pretty much anywhere, Sam Adams Boston Lager, a good, solid beer. It's good everywhere. You can get it in airports. You know, I'm a fan. So that's what we have today. I also want to show you guys, check this out. This is a bottle opener that is a legit railroad spike that was blacksmithed into a bottle opener. And this is like heavy. Like if I whacked you upside the head with this, if I whacked a burglar upside the head with this thing, this would like legitimately cause some damage. I actually got this. This is one of my favorite things that I own. I got this actually at the public market in Seattle before Seattle became a hellscape. And it is one of my favorite things. And so I wanted to show you guys my awesome bottle opener / burglar maiming device if I should ever need that. All right. Let's see. I think we're going to start off with a Wachusett Blueberry for our selection. I'm not even drinking a glass. I'm drinking it out of the bottle. We're going old school here. I'm not doing any newfangled cans. I don't know why craft beer people are so enamored with cans, but we're not drinking out of no newfangled cans. We're drinking out of a glass bottle. Like beer should be drunk, okay? All right. One last thing. Well, actually, no, a couple additional orders of business before we get started. Now, all of you, if you have not already, you need to download your Unwoke bingo card. What is an Unwoke bingo card, you say? Well, if you look in the pinned comment or in the description, depending on where you are watching this, you are going to see a link to your Unwoke bingo card. When you click on that link, you're going to get something that looks like this. You're going to click generate card. And then we are all going to be able to play Unwoke bingo together. You got your free space in the middle. We're going for a line or alternatively 4 corners. And when you get your bingo, just chat in that you got the bingo. Each bingo card is personalized to the person. I basically just put a whole bunch of crazy buzzwords in there and they personalize the bingo card just for you. Once we hit that first bingo, then we're going for blackout bingo. Just for fun. This is just to keep things a little bit interesting. And so make sure you get your Unwoke bingo card. Also, as many people are reminding us, make sure that you mount that like button before we get started. And lastly, this stream is brought to you by my Locals community because Locals is the only troll-free space on the internet. It is the nicest place on the internet. Many of my Locals members are here today. We have just launched a debate club in my Locals community. So next Saturday, we will actually be getting together for a nice little friendly debate. We're pretty excited about that. We have book club in my Locals community. We're reading Andy No's book, Unmasked, right now. We have 2 weekly Zoom calls in my Locals community. How can you get access to all this awesomeness, you ask? Well, you have to come and join. You can actually join Locals for free. You don't actually have to pay to join Locals. You can join for free just to kind of check it out. The link is in the description below. But if you do want to support my work, honestly, Locals is the very best place to do it. Listen, I got a strike on YouTube last week for being a psychologist that read a psychology article about the psychological impact of mass. And, you know, I wasn't able to earn revenue really on YouTube, on this channel anyway, for the last week. Well, guess what? It didn't really make a whole bit of difference to me because I've got an amazing community on Locals that are signed up as members. It starts at $5 a month. You can give more if you want to, but $5 a month will get you in the door. Will get you access to all of the features. And if you really want to go above and beyond, you're going to want to get that annual membership, which gives you 2 months for free. So kb.locals.com/support. The link is in the description below. All right, let's get started for today. All right, let me just get my fangle contraption up here. I gotta get into my Chrome tab. I've got to stream the audio to make sure you guys can hear it. All right, It looks like we are ready to go. If you are ready to go, type Y into the chat and let me know that you are ready to go, please. Let me know. Type Y into that chat and we can kick this party off. All right. Looks like we're ready. Okay, guys, I'm going to start the webinar. Let me know if you can't hear the volume. Let me know if you can't hear the sound, and that way I'll be able to go in and fix it. We'll have top volume. Let's get going.
My name is Misha Stone, and I'm a Reader Services librarian in the Reader Services Department. And before we begin this evening, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered together on the ancestral land of the Coast Salish people.
Land blessing! Land blessing! We haven't had a good old land blessing in a couple of weeks, have we? Oh my God. It's like, I felt like we're land blessing's not even a thing anymore. We're back in business with the land blessing. If you have that on your bingo card, make sure you check it off.
So together, let us honor their elders, past and present. We thank them for their stewardship of this land. Welcome to the library, and thank you for joining us for this reading with Dr. Robin DiAngelo. DiAngelo's essays and talks have been so important and revelatory to me. I know that I'll be reckoning with my own internalized racism, with my own socialization, and trying to reduce harm throughout my entire life, both personally and professionally. And what I love about the book, White Fragility, is that it crystallizes so much of what I've heard her say and write all in one place in a way that I can continue to move through it, continue to reference it. So I'm so honored to be here for the book launch for White Fragility. So we're all here tonight for White Fragility, and there's a lot of buzz about this book already. It's only been out for 2 days.
I'm curious, how many people have actually read this book? How many people have actually read White Fragility in the chat and not just watched me comment on it or anyone else? I'm just curious. All right, well, I'll pay attention to that.
And I think it's testament to the fact that this topic's time has come. Poet Claudia Rankine said, Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility brings language to the emotional structures that make true discussions about racial attitudes difficult. With clarity and compassion, DiAngelo allows us to understand racism as a practice not restricted to bad people. In doing so, she moves our national...
Racism is not a practice restricted to bad people. Now, this is funny because in White Fragility, Robin DiAngelo actually writes that you're not a bad person if you're a racist. You're just a white person. White people are just socialized to be racist. That's just what it is. And part of the whole premise of White Fragility is that, you know, it's okay. It's okay, white people, to admit that you're racist. So when it's people they agree with that are doing the work of becoming anti-racist, it's totally okay for them to be racist. But then at the same time, they also hurl racist as an insult against anyone that disagrees with them. So they're constantly contradicting themselves on that point.
Discussions forward with new rules of engagement. And Michael Eric Dyson, who wrote the lovely forward, called it a vital, necessary book, a bracing call to white folk everywhere to see their whiteness for what it is and seize the opportunity to make things better now. Please welcome Dr. Robin DiAngelo.
Dr. Robin DiAngelo.
Thank you so much. Okay, that was such a rush. Before I launch in, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to read a little bit, riff a little bit, kind of guide you along with some slides. But I do want to reiterate that this talk is happening on the ancestral territories of Indigenous peoples.
Oh, we're even going the extra mile today, guys. We have not one, but 2 land blessings. Extra points. Extra gold star.
And I believe
Robin.
very, very deeply that if we don't know our history, if we cannot trace the past into the present, we cannot explain current conditions in ways that are transformative rather than victim blaming. And I think today it's very, very clear when we see struggles around water rights at Standing Rock, the Duwamish yet again denied federal recognition, which denies treaty rights and sovereignty. These struggles are never separated from the present. At the same
Okay, so I don't normally like to like bash on people's looks. Like I'm not like a model or anything. But here's the thing is like when someone looks old and generally looks like a demon, you know that person is shilling things that are toxic. Honestly, this stuff eats away at people. Listen, I told you guys at the very beginning of this webinar, like my perspective, like being pissed off all the time is actually physically impacting my body to the point where I have to go to a chiropractor all the time to get things adjusted to be able to like walk without pain. And so imagine, if you will, decades and decades and decades of being Robin DiAngelo. She wears it all over her face. These people look so old. They look so haggard. They look so tired. They look, I mean, like, like to me, it's like, it's actually difficult for me to watch Robin DiAngelo because she just looks evil. And I think that that is really indicative of the ideology that she makes all of her money selling. It's like she has literally sold her soul to be able to do this.
time, a piece of white fragility is that white people are not taught their history. We don't know our history. So I want to acknowledge that. I want to position myself, of course, as a white person, and I'm talking to a very, talking and addressing a very, very specific dynamic. This is arguably the most complex, nuanced social dilemma since the beginning of this country. And there are myriad roads in, and all of them are essential. But so consistently left off the table is whiteness, right? So we often learn about this group and their struggles and their triumphs and their heroes and heroines, and yet we don't ask ourselves struggles and triumphs in relation to whom, right? And so again, I'm going to focus on white folks and white people. I do use humor, and I want to say a little bit about why I use humor. Some of it is my style.
I am going to guarantee you to be funny. August Brown says I'm having PTSD flashbacks. Make it stop. You know what'll make it stop is if you go get a cocktail. Let it out, girl. August, you vent your frustrations into this chat. You let it out. You just, go with it.
And also because there's so much tension and so much anxiety and so much charge and so much defensiveness and on for white people around race, that we can, when we begin to get challenged, we can shut down really quickly or glaze over or tune out. And all of those, of course, function to protect our positions and hold our worldviews in place. And so the laughter can help release some of that. If we can laugh at this, and mock it a little bit
Yes, Robin, if we can laugh at you and mock you, that is the whole purpose of Happy Hour. One of the reasons I wanted to start doing these live streams was because this stuff needs to be mocked. We need to blow off steam, especially those of us who live and breathe in this world all the time. The entire purpose of Happy Hour is that I want to blow off steam. That is the only reason that Happy Hour exists. And if you guys want to blow off steam with me, well, you're more than welcome. And please mount that like button. We have a shocking disparity of people watching the stream to like buttons mounted. Please mount that like button, people.
to be direct. It can help us then step back and not take ourselves so seriously, and hopefully again open.
PG, thank you for the super chat. If she hadn't struck it rich off selling racism, I could see her being a door-to-door Avon lady. That's probably true.
It up. And I want to say that this is killing people of color.
Killing
this
them.
Is very,
it's
very serious.
literally
So
killing
my
them.
humor is not meant
Literally.
to civilize that, but it is a strategy, one of many that I use in order to try to air this out and open it up. So I want to start by reading a bit from the beginning. White people in North America live in a society that is deeply separate and unequal by race, and white people are the beneficiaries of that separation and inequality. As a result, we are insulated from racial stress at the same time that we come to feel entitled to and deserving of our advantage. Given how seldom...
Listen, I'm going to tell you this. Like, it absolutely drives me crazy when anyone talks about how people shouldn't feel entitled to experience good things in life. It especially pisses me off in this context, but this happens all the time. What did she just say? Is like, white people are just socialized to believe that they are entitled to an advantage. No, that's fundamentally not true, and she doesn't have any research to back it up that it is. But furthermore, when you tell people that they shouldn't feel entitled to be treated well and to have success in life, what are you actually telling them? You're telling them that their expectation should be that they should not be treated well and they should not have success in life. And that is a fundamentally toxic ideology. I don't care what the color of your skin is. I don't care what your gender is. I don't care what your sexual orientation is. I don't care about any of your immutable characteristics. Every single person watching this right now should absolutely expect to be treated well in life, to have success in life. Because if you don't go in with that expectation, you are significantly less likely to achieve it. Your pal says, I don't see how individuals can be racist, but I find it very easy for collectivists to be racist. Isn't that the way it goes?
When we experience racial discomfort in a society we dominate, we haven't had to build our racial stamina. Socialized into a deeply internalized sense of superiority that we either are unaware of or can never admit to ourselves, we become highly fragile in conversations about race. We consider a challenge to our racial worldviews as a challenge to our very identities as good moral people. Thus, we perceive any attempt to connect us to the system of racism as an unsettling and unfair moral offense.
Redwall says, remember when conservatives said liberals were just lazy and everything white is hard work? And hardworking and everything against whiteness is being lazy? Yeah.
The smallest amount of racial stress is intolerable. The mere suggestion that being white has meaning often triggers a range of defensive responses. And these include emotions such as anger, fear, and guilt, and behaviors such as argumentation, silence, and withdrawal from the stress-inducing situation. These responses work to reinstate white equilibrium as they repel the challenge, return our racial comfort, and maintain our dominance within the racial hierarchy. I conceptualize this process as white fragility. Though white fragility is triggered by discomfort and anxiety, it is born of superiority and entitlement. White fragility is not weakness per se. In fact, it is a powerful means of white racial control and the protection of white advantage. In my early days of work of what was then termed a diversity trainer, I was taken aback by how
It's still
angry and
termed a
defensive so
diversity
many
trainer.
white people became at the suggestion that they were connected to racism in any way.
See, this is the excuse that these people have. Every time someone is like, no, your ideology is bullshit, they're like, you're just being defensive because you have white fragility. Now, it's natural to be defensive when you are a fragile white person, but that's the only reason that you could dare question me is that you are being fragile because of your white fragility. Okay, let me be as clear as I can possibly be. There is zero evidence that this is a real thing. There is zero evidence. There is zero. Look, I have on my desk right now, I have this book. I have this cursed book. This book, I'll tell you what, this book is highly durable because it has been chucked across the room at the wall more than once since I bought it. And it's still breathing and it's still here. And you know what I know about this book is that there are barely any sources cited for half of the chapters in it. What Robin DiAngelo did is, so for the first part, she's got a lot of sources cited for the first couple of chapters. You want to know why she's got a lot of sources cited for the first couple of chapters? Because this was her dissertation. This was her doctoral dissertation. And then when you get into the later chapters, when she had to advance beyond her original doctoral dissertation, there's like no flipping sources. So you can see like a lot of sources for the first couple chapters, and then we get into it. You guys can't really see. I know that it's really small, but like if you get into it, like you'll see there are barely any sources for some of the later chapters. Some of the later chapters actually have zero sources because she didn't advance beyond her dissertation. Shannon says, knock, knock. Have you heard the bad word and accepted CRT into your heart? That's funny, Shannon. Thank you.
The very idea that they would be required to attend a workshop on racism outraged them. They entered the room angry and made that feeling clear to us throughout the day as they slammed their notebooks down on the table, refused to participate in exercises, and argued against any and all points.
I have done corporate training, and that has literally never happened to me. Where an entire group of people just came into the room and slammed their stuff down and refused to participate in exercises. There has only been one person in the history of my corporate training career who refused to participate in an exercise, and she was honestly like the worst SJW I have ever met in my life. But only one person in my entire corporate training career has ever done what Robin DiAngelo just said, and she was an angry white lady.
I couldn't understand their resentment or disinterest in learning more about such a complex social dynamic as racism. These reactions were especially perplexing when there were few or no people of color in their workplace, and they had the opportunity to learn from my co-facilitators of color. I assumed that in these circumstances, an educational workshop on racism would be appreciated. After all, didn't the lack of diversity indicate a problem, or at least suggest that some perspectives were missing? Or that the participants might be undereducated about race because of scant cross-racial interactions? It took me several years to see beneath these reactions. At first, I was intimidated by
Wait. It took her several years to see beneath those interactions. So what she's saying is that she read into what these people were doing. Is that kind of what she's saying? Is like people had a negative reaction to me as a trainer, and so I read into what they were doing and made assumptions about why they were doing it, and then I wrote a whole book about my assumptions about why white people didn't like my training when I was going into organizations and telling white people that they're fragile and racist? Is that what I'm hearing? I think it is.
them, and they held me back and kept me careful and quiet. But over time, I began to see what lay beneath this anger and resistance to discuss race or listen to people of color. I observed consistent responses from a variety of participants. For example, many white participants who lived in white suburban neighborhoods and had no sustained relationships with people of color were absolutely certain that they held no racial prejudice.
How does Robin DiAngelo know that the white participants in her diversity workshops had no sustained relationships with people of color? How does she know that? Could Robin DiAngelo be assuming that because she has no relationships with people of color that are genuine and authentic, that every white person doesn't have relationships with people of color? Honestly, because, like, I'll tell you what, again, I did corporate training. I never once went into an organization and was like, how many of you have deep, authentic relationships with people of color? Can you tell me about all of your friends and all of your personal relationships that are really none of my business because all I'm doing here is being a corporate trainer? No, they don't do that. That's not how this works. Your pal, her logic, I'm white, I'm racist. Everyone white is like me, and therefore all whites are racist. Yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Black Metal Matter says, I'm not a psychologist, but isn't that called projecting? I am a psychologist, and that is indeed called projecting.
Or animosity. Other participants simplistically reduced racism to a matter of nice people versus mean people. Most appeared to believe that racism ended in 1865 with the end of enslavement. There was both knee-jerk
She's made that up.
defensiveness about any suggestion that being white had.
Robin DiAngelo just suggested that white people don't understand that there was a civil rights movement in this country. That's what she just suggested. She just said, like, most white people just think that racism just ended with the Civil War. They didn't see the movie Selma. They've never read about Martin Luther King. They had white people have no idea that Martin Luther King even existed. That's what she just said.
Had meaning and a refusal to acknowledge any advantage to being white.
Hang on.
Over
Okay,
time, I began to see what I think.
I have an activity we can do as a group. I need to make a custom emoji for every time Robin DiAngelo is telling a bold-faced lie. And this will be for the members on my channel. So what custom emoji, like what image should I use for an emoji that would indicate that Robin DiAngelo is telling a bold-faced lie? Chat in your suggestions and I will make this emoji while we are on the stream.
Of as the pillars of whiteness, the unexamined
Pinocchio,
beliefs that prop up
yes.
our racial responses. I
Yes,
can see the power
yes.
of the belief that only bad people
I'm on
are
it.
racist,
Pinocchio, on
as
it.
well as how individualism allowed white people to exempt themselves from the forces of socialization. I could see how we are taught to think about racism only as discrete acts committed by individual people rather than as a complex, interconnected system. And in light of so many white expressions of resentment toward people of color, I realized that we see ourselves as entitled to and deserving of more than people of color deserve. I saw our investment in a system that serves us. I also saw how hard we worked to deny all this and how defensive we became when these dynamics were named. In turn, I saw how our defensiveness maintained the racial status quo. And none
Warren.
of the white
Warren says, I love how Claudia Rankin quotes references true discussions about racial attitudes. By true discussions, they mean automatic agreement. That is exactly correct. Guys, I have a Pinocchio emoji identified. I'll be adding that to the chat soon. We also have Mike Weasley has an option as well. So if you want the okay, so we do have some options here. I'm going to give you guys a custom Pinocchio emoji as well. But every time Robin DiAngelo tells a bold-faced lie, I want to see the lying emoji in the chat. Every single time that you think that Robin DiAngelo is telling a bold-faced lie, please put that Pinocchio emoji in the chat, whichever Pinocchio emoji you like. And that's how we'll play this little game, Robin.
People that I identify, whose actions I describe in this book, would identify as racist. In fact, I think they would most likely identify as racially progressive and vehemently deny any complicity with racism. Yet all of their responses illustrate white fragility and how it holds racism in place.
All of
These
their responses
spur
all
the
of their
daily
responses.
frustrations and
She is actually saying that every response she's gotten from a white person ever indicates their white fragility. Liar. Fill up that chat with Pinocchios. Liar. But Karlyn, she isn't a real critical race theorist. Real CRT has never been tried.
Indignities people of color endure from white people who see themselves as open-minded and thus not racist. This book is intended for us, for white progressives who so often, despite our conscious intentions, make life so difficult for people of color.
Okay, listen to what she just said. This book is intended for white progressives who so often make life difficult for people of color. Isn't that the truth? That it is white progressives who make life difficult for people of color. That is exactly the point, Robin. Thank you for spelling it out so clearly.
I believe that white progressives cause the most daily damage to people of color.
True. I'm clipping that. True. White progressives cause the most daily damage to people of color. True. No Pinocchios.
And I define a white progressive as any white person who thinks he or she is not racist, or is less racist, or is in the choir, or already gets it. White progressives can be the most difficult for people of color because to the degree that we think we have it, we're going to put all of our energy into making sure you think that we have it, and none of it into what we need to be doing for the rest of our lives. Right?
Robin. Oh my God. Oh, Robin, you're so good. Oh, Robin.
White progressives do indeed uphold and perpetrate racism, but our defensiveness and certitude make it very...
White progressives do indeed uphold racism. I'm clipping this whole damn thing. Alexandra Martin, happy Friday. Yo, peeps, someone has mounted that like button. I hope it's not you. Cheers, Karlyn. Glad you're back on YouTube, even if YouTube is CommieTube. Absolutely. Thank you, Alexandra Martin. And as a reminder, guys, mount that like button, please. This is already our largest happy hour ever. Welcome to all new happy hour attendees. I do this every Friday. I'm simulcasting right now on my own on my first channel and my second channel, just for good measure, so I don't have to upload this crap later.
Virtually impossible to explain to us how we do so. So I'm pretty sure I'm speaking to a room filled with white progressives. So let me just be clear, you are not the choir. There is no choir. I am not the choir. When I say there is no choir, it's because my learning will never be finished. And this moment I think I'm the choir, I think I'm going to be done and I'm going to have certitude.
What Robin DiAngelo means is that she has always been racist from the womb. She will be racist all of her life because she was born white. That is what she means. When she says, my work is never done, that's what she means. She means that she will always be a racist. Hey, guys. The Pinocchio emoji is coming up real soon.
I often joke, but on some levels, it's kind of true. When I first applied to be that diversity trainer back in the early 90s, I thought, well, of course I'm qualified to lead discussions on racism. I'm a vegetarian. How could I be racist?
Wow. Fun fact, veganism has actually been labeled as a tool of white supremacy. Oddly enough, eating meat has also been labeled a tool of white supremacy. So who the hell knows? Who knows?
Now, I would need to be vegan today. But, you know, in the 90s, that was pretty alternative, right? I even got called a communist once when I said, no, I'm a vegetarian. But, you know, my point is, I just thought it was all about open-mindedness and alternativeness. And let me just say that, you know, I love Seattle and everything I learned about white fragility.
Haha, Floridian says, no, they put all their energy into telling POC how to think and how to feel, something that has been very annoying for this POC. Yes, they do. Yes.
I learned here working with white progressives. So, chapter 1, challenges to talking to white people about racism. All right? I have never met a white person who did not have an opinion on racism. Have you? If you are not sure that all white people have opinions on racism, just bring it up the next time you're around a bunch of white people. Maybe tonight when you have a drink in Ballard after the talk. And see how that goes. Not only do we all have opinions, but they tend to be very emotionally charged, and that has nothing to do with whether they're informed or not. I have an opinion on virtually everything. That does not make them informed. I don't believe you can grow up or spend any significant time in the United States without developing opinions on racism, and they will be emotional and strongly held. And again, that has nothing to do with whether they're informed. And in fact, if you are white and you have not devoted years of sustained study, struggle, and focus on this topic, your opinions are necessarily very limited. And no,
how dare she deign to tell someone else what opinions they're allowed to have? Your opinions are if you haven't done what I've done and have dedicated my life to a stupid, ridiculous, lying ideology, then your opinions are they're limited. I hate to break it to you, white people. Your opinions are just too limited. All right, guys. I believe if you refresh, if you're a channel member, this is only for channel members, there is now a Pinocchio emoji. It's not my best emoji. I'll make it better later. But there it is for right now. We do have a Pinocchio emoji in the chat, or you can use the other one. I don't really care. Warren Shull says, I love how the word argumentation is used to refer to all disagreements, regardless of their merit. Yes. And Initio, I'm supposed to be writing a 5-page essay on hypothesis testing, but instead I'm watching you. Robin is just really getting paid to lie to people. Well, good luck with your essay. 5 pages isn't too bad. You'll be able to bang that out. Don't worry.
a trip to Costa Rica, multiracial nieces and nephews, right? These are not sustained study, struggle, and focus. Now, how can I say that when I don't know most of the people in this room? And this, of course, is the first thing that tends to trigger white fragility, generalizing about white people.
Does this woman know that there is so much more to living life than obsessing over people's skin color? No, she does not. No, she doesn't. No, she doesn't. I'm just saying, like, white people just don't like it when I generalize about them. Robin, guess what? No one likes it when you project your own insecurities and racism onto them and then blame them for your racism.
As a sociologist, I'm really comfortable generalizing about white people. Social life is predictable and patterned, in really observable ways, and we've got to grapple with those patterns. But I can say this, that your opinions without sustained study, struggle, focus, mistake making, relationship building, repair, they're superficial because nothing in society gives you the information you need to have more than that. In fact, you can get through graduate school in this country without ever discussing racism, can you not?
Oh my God, you mean you can go get a master's degree without discussing racism? You mean when I did my master's in business administration, I was supposed to spend all my time discussing racism? Is that what I'm hearing, Robin? God forbid MBA programs don't spend all their time discussing racism. I had to learn silly things like production and procurement and all sorts of other things that I don't use at all today. That hey, let me just be honest. Maybe if my MBA program had spent all their time discussing racism, I would actually use my MBA today. I don't know, maybe.
You can get through teacher education in this country without discussing racism.
No, you can't. No, you can't. That is a downright lie. That does not happen. You actually cannot get through. In fact, some states, Illinois is one of those states, actually requires its teachers to do training like this in order to be licensed. So Robin is lying yet again. It must be a day that ends in Y. Grim Metal says, picking up patterns related to race. I wonder what the FBI crime statistics have to say about that. We don't, dude, we don't look at statistics. Come on. Zipita says she spent years of her life to this stuff and she came to the conclusion that falsely accusing people of racism makes them mad and defend themselves. Yes, that's exactly correct. Robin DiAngelo spent a career running around telling white people that they're racist for being born white, and she pissed them off, and then she was surprised when all of them were like, no, we're not actually racist, and you can go fuck yourself. Let's see. Tech Priest Fisher says, can Robin explain how racism has anything to do with me learning how to play classical music and jazz scales that still confuse me? Well, she'd probably, if you're a white person and you're playing jazz, she'd probably say you're culturally appropriating and that's racist. So, all right, guys, I'm getting so many super chats. I'm going to try to read as many super chats as I can, but bare minimal, I will show your super chat on the screen. But if I read all these super chats, we're going to be here all flipping night. And though, while that might be fun, one can only take so much Robin DiAngelo, all right? So I will do one or the other.
If you're in a progressive teacher education program, you'll have one required multicultural education class. But that doesn't mean you'll be talking about racism.
Wrong.
You might just be talking about how to introduce ethnic authors.
That's wrong. She's lying. Alexander John says, have you seen Tom McDonald's new video song Snowflake? Yes, I did see it and I loved it. And I have to tell you, when he said the Coke be less white thing, I may have shrieked and was like, ah! No, but I loved it. Blair looked fabulous in it. Blair looked so good and I was so happy for her. That was awesome. It was really good. I actually had it stuck in my head all day yesterday, that song.
In February. Right? You can get through law school, you can get through social work, right? You can be seen as qualified to lead a major or minor institution in this country, to lead a group of people, to supervise people. You can be seen as qualified to do those things with virtually no ability whatsoever to engage with any complexity or nuance in the issue of race.
Guess what? To be a good manager, you shouldn't be talking about race. I'm sorry. Managers in the workplace are not equipped at all in any way to have complex discussions about solutions to racism in this country. And in fact, it only inhibits the morale of your team in order to be able to do that. So if you work in an organization and you manage people and you haven't had to go through one of these trainings, congratulations, your organization is doing it right. I've done a lot of manager training. Unlike Robin DiAngelo, I can actually measure the effectiveness of my manager training, and my manager training, which did not deal with race at all in any way, increased team productivity by as much as 30% on the teams that actually listen to me. So Robin doesn't know what she's talking about. Raised by wolves, I saw how her multi-ethnic family members feel knowing that she hates it. Yeah, I mean, who the hell knows? Who knows? Who knows? Lit BA, Education Certification, Library MS, 97 diverse content.
Can you not? All right. So that is the first challenge, humility. The second is individualism. Apparently, white people do not understand socialization because we really think that we are exempt from it. And
if you don't think that white people are socialized to be racist, well, you are just a racist white person that was socialized to be. You obviously don't understand socialization if you don't think that you were born racist if you were white.
Of course, the irony of that is because we're socialized to value the individual, we put a lot of effort there. But we think that, just because I say I am or want to be, I could be exempt from these forces. So that is another challenge. And again, generalizing, suggesting race has meaning for white people will often trigger white fragility. We think if we don't see it, it isn't there, and you haven't explained it to me yet enough so that I understand it, so I'm not really sure that could be valid.
Look, she's got this horse on with the blinders. She's basically saying that white people just have blinders on and they just walk around society like with their blinders on so that they can't see their inherent obvious racism through those blinders.
And we tend to use our reactions as a way out. There is no way we're going to get where we need to go from a place of white comfort. And I am comfortable racially virtually 24/7. So that is not my goal, but we will often use that lack of comfort as a sign that something's been done wrong rather than something probably has been done right. And that we need to use that as a way in to the deeper framework that would cause such upset rather than use it as a way out. And we don't understand racism as a system. So this is another key challenge, which leads me to chapter 2, which is racism and white supremacy. Racism is a system, not an event.
This is how they get into systemic racism. So there's been a lot of talk on Twitter today about how conservatives just don't know how to define critical race theory. Conservatives always complain about critical race theory, but they don't know how to define critical race theory. Here is the definition of critical race theory in a nutshell. Critical race theory is a fringe ideology that started in academia in the 1970s. You could argue it has roots in the Frankfurt School as well. That's true, but it is actually its own thing. Started in academia in the 1970s, and the core tenet of critical race theory is that racism exists everywhere. It exists in systems, it exists in human beings, it exists in every conversation, it exists in every institution. You are literally surrounded by racism all the time. And this is how they get to the argument of systemic racism. That's what that means. It means that racism has affected every single system in this country. Every single system, every single institution. And the job of the critical race theorist is to root out how racism occurred in any given situation. So that's what they mean when they say systemic racism. TPS, stop shoving your plank into my eye, Robin. Jessica says, daughter went to college for psychology, had to take history. Choice was African American history, women or LGBT history, credit. When I went to college, I actually had to take real history classes. I didn't have those options. I like a minor in history.
And it's the system we're in. And none of us could be, and none of us were exempt from its forces. But the way we're taught to think of racism functions beautifully to not only obscure the system, but to exempt us from its forces, right? Or to have us believe we are exempted from its forces. Now, as a white person, I was raised to be racially illiterate. And I actually think all white people are raised to be racially illiterate.
Robin DiAngelo assumes that because she was raised in a bougie white household and didn't know any black people growing up, she assumes that every white person was raised in a bougie white household that didn't know black people growing up.
In this culture. And in gaining racial literacy, I have had to understand not just the collective dynamics and dimensions of racism, but how racism impacts different groups who are perceived and defined as people of color, how it impacts them differently, right? So not all peoples of color experience racism differently. the things I've internalized about different groups is different, where and how they are positioned always in relation to whiteness or far away from whiteness.
It's these people who position them in relation to whiteness. It never it never even occurred to me prior to reading and understanding what Robin DiAngelo and people like her were preaching. It literally never even occurred to me to position people of color in relation to white people. I mean, that's like an absurd idea. Substitute class for race and CRT, and you have Marxism. Well, no, not exactly. Not exactly. Marxism is just about power. It's not, I mean, I guess kind of, but I guess kind like, listen, here's what people really need to understand. Critical race theory it's not about race. Their end goal has nothing to do with race. Their end goal has nothing to do with racism. It is all about power. Race is just the avenue that they are taking in order to gain more power. That's it. TPS says personal problem, Robin. I had better parents. I mean, I grew up in pasty white Vermont and I still had interactions with black people. Jessica, thank you for becoming a member on the channel. I appreciate it.
And how that manifests, right? All of that must be understood. But after a good 20 plus years of talking day in and day out to white people about racism, I feel very confident to say that there is something profoundly anti-Black in this culture. And that nothing.
Really, you spent 20 years every single day telling white people they're racist, and you magically discovered that white people are racist? Is that what I'm hearing, Robin? Is that you made money trying to convince white people they're racist for 20 years and then magically discovered that white people are racist and wrote a book about how white people are racist? That's basically what you just said. Wait, did someone get a bingo? Did someone get a bingo? Congratulations, who got a bingo? Oh, tell us what squares you got if you got a bingo.
Seems to turn white people's cranks of resentment, like thinking Black people got something over on us that they didn't deserve. And the deeper belief is that they're inherently undeserving. I believe in the white mind, Black people are the ultimate racial other, right? And that there are.
I believe, holy shit. What Robin DiAngelo told us is that she believes that Black people are the ultimate racial other. CRT, MLK's dream isn't profitable, basically.
Are these bookends. And again, your perceived proximity to each end of that impacts how you're going to experience your racialization. So having said that, and not really having time to do history, I just want to give you one glance
you
at
can
the
still get a bingo
of anti-Blackness in this.
Guys, you can still play bingo. Just because one person got bingo doesn't mean we can't all play bingo. Keep on filling up those bingo cards. Let us know if you get a regular bingo. Let us know especially if you get blackout bingo.
In this country since its beginning, and this slide will be deliberately dense. We can literally think about it as state-sanctioned, organized crime, but at least discrimination against African Americans from the beginning.
She wants to say that whiteness is state-sanctioned organized crime. She's arguing that whiteness is state-sanctioned organized crime? Oh my god. Nat D says, why are upper-class white women with glasses from Seattle and the Bay Area the experts on everything on racism? I don't see this much anywhere else. Because race, like, white fragility is the pure domain of rich, white, liberal women. Not pure. There are other people doing it too. But guys, if you have not gotten your Unwoke bingo card yet, you can still join in. You can find it in the description below or the pinned comment on the channel. Make sure you download your Unwoke bingo card just for funsies to play along with us.
And it starts with kidnapping and 300 years of enslavement, torture, rape, and brutality, and it carries on. And about a quarter of the way in, you see bans on testifying against whites, which made it technically legal to murder Black people in this country, and you are now in my lifetime. And I'm going to say it again because, again, a lot of white people seem to think it ended a long time ago. We're in my lifetime about a quarter of the way through that slide. And then we see about 2/3.
TPS are Robin DiAngelo. If everyone is guilty, then I'm not responsible for my sins. Accusation equals confession. That's exactly it. She's projecting her guilt onto everyone else because if everyone is racist, that means that Robin DiAngelo is just normal.
Of the way through employment discrimination, and we are in 2018 with copious empirical evidence. Right? So let's pick it up there. Employment discrimination, educational discrimination, biased laws and policing practices, white flight, subprime mortgages, mass incarceration, the school to prison pipeline.
Remember that
disproportionate
Pinocchio.
Special ed referrals and punishments,
Pinocchio.
testing, tracking, school funding, biased media representation, historical omissions, and so much more. It is a system, not an event. It's the system we're in, and none of us could be, and none of us were exempt from its forces. If we want to be unique and special individuals, then we need to figure out how whatever we see is special and different about us set us up into that system, because it did. So I'm talking, I know white people really well. I'm talking X, and you're like, ha, I was Y, right? Okay, you were Y, most whites are X. How did Y set you up? It did.
Robin DiAngelo basically just doesn't want white people to have success in the world. That's what it is. I mean, and we have to question why that is, because Robin DiAngelo is a very, 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 very rich white lady. So why doesn't she want white people to have success in the world? Well, the answer is going to be because she hates herself. We can see that she hates herself because of she wears it all over her face. And so if you hate yourself and you fundamentally feel guilty about your success and you believe that all your success is wrapped up in your skin color and something that was outside of your control, and you hate yourself so much for that success, then of course you're going to project that onto other people. And that is exactly what Robin DiAngelo does. All of this is just projection. Yet BIPOC have opinions on race. Who chooses what is informed or not? Well, what they say is that if you disagree with Robin DiAngelo and you're not white, then you're just engaging in multicultural whiteness. Julian says, what empirical evidence? The statistics clearly put the lie to what she said. That's correct, Julian. There is no evidence to back up what Robin DiAngelo is saying.
The question is not if, it's how.
Okay, so the question is not if, it's how, which is exactly my definition of critical race theory, which I'm told I don't understand the definition of critical race theory all the time. And then Robin DiAngelo basically gives my definition of critical race theory. And then what do they say? They say, Robin DiAngelo isn't a critical race theorist, Karlyn. It's not the same thing. How dare you say that Robin DiAngelo is a critical race theorist? Alt lecture title, I studied history, found out my very existence depends on past suffering, and now I'm insane. Please validate my existence.
Repeat it. It's a system, not an event. And how do we cope with the moral trauma of what I just read to you? Resmaa Menakem has a beautiful book, My Grandmother's Hands, where he talks about racial trauma. There's a trauma, I believe, to white people of racism, but I don't think it's a moral trauma. Right? And it's a piece of white fragility, not being able to face our complicity in this system. Well, historically, we projected our sins onto the Black body. Right? Lazy.
I'm sorry. What? White people have projected their... Okay. Tell me more.
Shiftless, criminal. We projected our sins onto the Black body. Today, in addition to doing that, we obscure the system of racism that we uphold, and we exempt ourselves from its forces. Right? And we do this in a way that appears to be progressive.
Bodies,
right?
bingo word.
That race doesn't matter to us. This is the board after the grand champion college Jeopardy round, right? And for me, it just speaks volumes, right? Not
college Jeopardy tells us everything we need to know about humanity, said the sociologist.
Not, again, knowing our history and being able to trace it into the present is one of the volumes it speaks. Another one is That is the history of this country. It is not their history. It didn't happen in a vacuum. So one of the
Frederick Douglass might disagree with you, Robin, that the history of this country is all about white people. Frederick Douglass might disagree with you. Harriet Tubman might disagree with you. Lots of people might disagree with you that their history is not wrapped up in this country.
aspects of institutional power is the ability to disseminate your worldview to everyone, to position it as objective and universal, right? And to tell the story, right? The story of the other when we are not in relationship with the other. Right? So I want to give you an example of the power of the story. And I want to do it through the Jackie Robinson story. You all know Jackie Robinson? Right? So Jackie Robinson has been quite celebrated for doing something. What's the tagline that goes with Jackie Robinson? He broke the color line, right? Now, so let's do a little discourse analysis. Because every year on the anniversary, we celebrate him breaking the color line.
She's so smug, I can barely watch her. Honestly, this is like, thank God I have beer, because beer is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. Because I can barely watch her. She is so smug. And she's had work done too. Like she did something to her lips. Her lips are weird. You guys notice this? And again, I don't like attacking people's looks, but when you make yourself look like this because you fundamentally hate yourself and you teach other people to hate themselves for 20 years of your life, you just can't help but notice it. It's distracting.
So think about what that invokes, right? He was exceptional. He was special. He did it. Finally, one of them had what it took to break through and play with us. Up until him, nobody had what it took. So subtext, inferior group.
What?
Right? But he did it. And of course,
I would like to take a poll in the chat. How many of you believe that if you believe that Black people are superior to white people when it comes to sports, type Y into the chat. If you believe that Black people are inferior to white people when it comes to sports, generally, I'm not talking about like cricket or some like random sport. Generally speaking, if you believe that Black people are superior to white people when it comes to sports, type Y into the chat.
the day he did it, the day he broke the color line, racism in sports ended.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
So imagine if we told a story like this. Jackie Robinson, the first Black man that whites allowed to play Major League Baseball. And I want you to notice the difference in that story. One, that's the truth. It didn't matter how exceptional he was, and I actually don't believe he was the first most exceptional. But if we didn't say he could play, he couldn't play. If he walked out onto that field
Right.
before we said you can walk out on the field, the police would have removed him. It wasn't up to him. Right? Now, the reason I want us to tell the story the second way is one, because it's true, and two, because I need role models. Right? How did white people get organized?
I've already
What did
finished
they
my
do
first
behind
beer.
the scene? What barriers did they face? What challenges, right? What strategies did they use? And could we use any of those today and adapt any of those today? Right? It's not about me wanting to point out how bad white people are.
Beer
so chapter 3
two.
looks at racism after the civil rights movement. And after the civil rights movement, it made a brilliant adaptation. So post-civil rights, racism got reduced to the following formula. A racist is an individual who consciously does not like people based on race.
Oh, this is where they talk about changing the definition of racism. Okay, so how most people think of racism is like when a person thinks that they're superior to another person based purely on the color of their skin. That's not what the definition of racism is today. They have literally changed the dictionary definition of racism. So guys, one of the best pieces of advice I have is what I want all of you to do is I want you to go on eBay. I want you to go on eBay. You can even do it while we're on this live stream. And I want you all to buy an old school dictionary. I'm talking like a pre-1990s or pre-2000s dictionary, like one of the big, thick books. Buy an old school dictionary because you want to have that dictionary around because they change definitions of words all the time, and you want to be able to have some sort of reference for what these words actually mean before these people started changing the definition. So go on eBay, get yourself a dictionary. It'll cost you like $3. It's really not that expensive. You want to have that stuff around. And by the way, start collecting physical books. Start collecting those physical books because it's going to come in real handy. Jackie Robinson was not the first African American to play MLB. Moses Fleetwood Walker played before him, I believe, in Cincinnati. I don't know, but I will take your word for it. Alex Oakley.
And is intentionally mean to them. Always an individual, must be conscious, must be intentional.
And guys, the reason we collect physical things is they go back and they change digital copies. So don't think that just because do not trust any digital copies that you have. Buy physical things, collect physical books.
That definition exempts virtually all white people from the system of racism. This definition.
Oh, Robin? Oh, hang on. Did Robin DiAngelo just say that if we use the traditional definition of racism, that exempts all white people from racism, or virtually all white people from racism? Exactly, Robin. That is precisely the point. You people literally changed the dictionary definition of racism so that you, Robin DiAngelo, could make money. That is what you did. You changed the dictionary, commonly understood definition of racism, so that you could grift and make tens of thousands of dollars an hour, shilling your nonsense to rich, bougie white people who feel guilty about being white because people like you have taught them to feel guilty. Exactly. Thank you for clarifying that, Robin.
Root of virtually all white defensiveness on racism. Have you guys noticed any white defensiveness on racism? Yeah.
I am writing a book on
this. It makes it virtually
this.
impossible to talk to the average white person about the inevitable absorption of a racist worldview that we get from being socialized in a racist culture in which white supremacy is the bedrock. Because you suggest that anything I have done.
We're just socialized in a white culture in which white supremacy is the bedrock. And then she does this. This is like Robin DiAngelo's permanent look. We're just socialized in white culture in which white supremacy is the bedrock. That's it. In a society of personal responsibility, she's confused by a definition that places the blame of racism on the individual. / confused binary noises. Exactly. Tech Priest Fisher, you were one of my favorite super chatters, I have to say.
Is racially problematic in any way, and I'm going to hear a question to my moral character, and I'm going to need to defend my moral character. You know, we've probably seen this a million times, right? So that definition actually functions to protect racism, even as it looks like progress, right? Racism became bad post-civil rights. So this sets up what I think about as the good-bad binary. That kind of, it's either or, right? Racists are bad, not racists are good. And we know how to fill that in, don't we? Ignorant, bigoted, prejudice.
Sherilyn has a Noah Webster 1828 dictionary. Dude, I really want I want a total old school leather bound dictionary. I feel like I need to go to a whole bunch of used bookstores or old rare bookstores. I want a legit awesome huge leather bound awesome old school 1800s dictionary. That's really my fantasy dictionary that I want. Yes, these are things I think about.
Mean-spirited, definitely old. And when we die off, there'll be no more racism.
There'll be no more racism.
I've been working with a lot of these tech companies that when I walk around, I think to myself, God, I guess you have to be under 30 to work here. And I'm telling you, they cannot think critically about race. And the people
People under 30 can very rarely think critically about anything. Why? Because these people have destroyed our education system and have stopped teaching people critical thinking. They only teach these kids what to think, not how to think. I had a meeting with a couple HR people like last week, and one of those HR people said, Karlyn, my biggest problem is that the younger employees won't think critically. And I was like, huh, really? Tell me more. They were like, well, they can't think critically about how to solve problems. They can't, like, they just do what they're told. They don't think critically about anything. And I was like, huh, you don't say. And of course, this is one of those companies, and you know, I mean, listen, God love them. They think that they're doing the right thing. I actually don't want to talk bad about these people because they really think that they're doing the right thing. But this is one of those companies that is implementing crap like this. And I'm trying to be like really slick about it and being like, maybe you want to do Chloe Valdery's theory of enchantment instead. Maybe you don't want to do it like this. Maybe you want to teach people how to self-empower. I'm trying to be like super slick about it because I want to help them, because I know if I go in all guns blazing, they're going to be like, you're a racist, and they're not going to hire me, which means I can't help them. And I don't really care if they hire, like, I'm sure they're going to find out about this stuff eventually. Maybe they're even watching right now. But like, you know, I can't help people if I can't, if they're doing this crap, because it completely subverts the whole thing. Like, you don't tell me you want people to be thinking critically and then show them crap like this, which doesn't allow them to think critically.
People of color that work with these young people are in so much pain, right? No, I get asked all the time, do you think young people today are less racist? Oh, actually, the question usually begins with, don't you think? And just a heads up, if you approach me with, don't you think, the answer is no.
Oh, really, Robin? Because you've just spent the first half hour of this lecture telling us what white people think. You've literally just spent the first 30 minutes of this lecture telling us what you believe white people think while presenting absolutely zero empirical evidence that white people actually think that. But if someone comes up to you and says, Robin DiAngelo, don't you think XYZ? You're like, no, I don't think that. I don't know why you would project your own insecurities onto me. Your pal, thank you. Oh my God, your pal. I so appreciate you. I really, really do. But we still have an hour of drinking time left in this presentation, an hour plus. So, you know, get back in the game, man. Get back in the game. Thank you. I appreciate it. Paxton Anthony Murphy, according to DiAngelo's definition of racism, I can consciously hate individual blacks and not be considered racist. Well, I mean, maybe that's technically true, but I'm pretty sure it wouldn't actually work out that way, because if you disagree with a black person ever, it's only because of racism.
Because that's not an open question. But no, I don't actually think young people today are less racist, or because that consciousness hasn't changed our outcomes. In fact, they're getting worse.
Robin DiAngelo thinks young people today are more racist than young people 50 years ago. Okay, Robin. All right. Jaya, who will be president someday, it's funny how she is literally ensuring racism will stay alive for generations. You know what, guys? You know what? It's like Robin DiAngelo makes money if people believe that they're racist. It's like this is how she makes money. It's like if everyone stopped believing Robin DiAngelo's bullshit today, she would stop making money. Oh my God, how funny how that works.
Right? Okay. So Southern for sure, don't you think?
Right,
Around
dude,
here,
right?
I'm pretty sure they live in Fife. I've never been to Fife, but on the way to Tacoma, I see Fife. I'm like, ooh, boy, it looks like racists live there.
But I thought being racist was okay, Robin. You told me half an hour ago that, you know, it's actually okay to be a racist. It's all right to be a racist. So why would you be actually so afraid of racists living there? I'm just saying.
And when I'm on my way up north, it's like Smoky Point. Okay? All right.
CRT poured gas on racism. Ambers
not
blames
racists
us.
are good. We're educated, progressive, open-minded, well-intended. We're young. We're northern. We live on Finney Ridge. But we're all moving to Portland really soon. Because Whole Foods is so corporate now.
Yes, please all move to Portland. I would actually love it if we could just group all of the anti-racists in Portland and they can go and destroy that city. I think that would be like best case scenario. And listen, like I used to like Portland's a cool city, man, or it was a cool city. I enjoyed Portland. I can literally never go back to Portland now. I've actually thought about this. There was a brief time. Okay, so there's like a walkaway donor. This isn't Portland, but it's close enough. There was a walkaway donor that like wanted to send us all to the Chaz when that was still a thing in Seattle, to have us go through the Chaz. And there was like a brief moment where we're like, oh, that could be a good idea. That idea was thrown out the window right quick. I'll tell you what, because it would actually like, I can't go to Portland. I can't, like, there's so many, like, anyone who's like public can't go to Portland. Like, I don't want to get the crap beat out of me. I'm not like daring like Andy no. I like and I'm not even on that level. And I would feel like I can't go to Portland. It's so upsetting. But if I can't go to Portland, we might as well, my point is, we may as well cordon off all of the anti-racists in like one geographic area. So if they all want to move to Portland and we just know it's like Portland like emancipates itself from the union and they have their little progressive utopia, I think that's like best case scenario. I really do.
Again, this is the root of.
It's so depressing. Seattle too, because I actually really like Seattle. Seattle used to be one of my favorite cities. The beer scene in Seattle was really, really good. I mean, Elysium before they sold out, like really good beer. I've like had some of the best. Like I travel a lot for work, or I used to travel a lot for work before the pandemic, right? And like, you know, so I judge cities based on food, based on like being able to walk around and see cool stuff, and based on beer. And those are the three things in which I judge cities on. And Seattle was like a big ass city for all of those things. Now I can't even go there anymore. Ugh.
Virtually all white defensiveness, and it just functions so beautifully to exempt us. So we just have to get rid of it. And when white people hear me and they feel angry and pissed off and defensive, can I just say this now that you guys are loosening me up here? When you laugh at my jokes, I'm going to keep getting looser.
Oh, good. Do it, Robin. Get loose.
Damn white people are pissy about racism. We are so pissy on
Well, that's getting clipped. That is absolutely getting clipped.
this topic. We're mean on this topic, right? And so if you're sitting here feeling that,
Red Mag 13, many years ago, I used to like San Francisco. Now I can't go there anymore because of what it's become. Similar sentiment to what you mentioned about Portland and Seattle. Yeah, I mean, San Francisco, same thing, man. San Francisco, a little less with the walking because San Francisco is like sprawl. But like, and also San Francisco is scary. I mean, San Francisco is dirty. There's needles everywhere. There's crazy people running up and down the street. I mean, San Francisco, like the climate is really, really nice. But everything else is like, eh.
just see if it isn't rooted in this definition. And if you cannot let go of this, you're just not going to be able to move forward. So aversive racism is a form of what sociologists call new racism.
New racism?
So it's racism that progressive whites are most likely to hold, but
new racism. I've never even heard this term. I mean, this was 2 years ago. So new racism is a type of racism that progressive whites are most likely to hold. Tell us more, Robin.
But because it conflicts with our identities as good people, we're most likely to be in denial about it. So let me find that piece. It's a manifestation of racism that well-intentioned people who see themselves as educated and progressive are more likely to exhibit. It exists under the surface of conscience.
So basically, what she's saying is like new racism is the type of racism that white progressives have because they think that they're so progressive that they're not racist. That's basically the definition of new racism as I'm understanding it.
Because it conflicts with consciously held beliefs of racial equity and justice. Aversive racism is a subtle but insidious form, as aversive racists enact racism in ways that allow them to maintain a positive self-image, e.g., I have lots of friends of color, I judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin.
Why is that bad?
Why
is that bad? Why is saying that you judge people based on the content of their character rather than the color of their skin considered to be racist? Why is that bad? Isn't that the goal? No, because and this is specifically, this is what I'm talking about. She just said that it is a new racism idea to judge people based on the content of their character rather than on the color of their skin. So what does that infer? That the only way that Robin DiAngelo wants you to judge people is based on the color of their skin, not the content of their character. Someone asked what beer I'm drinking in the chat. That is an Allagash White. The first beer I had, which I actually think I like better now that I'm comparing the two directly, I had a Wachusett Blueberry. I have another one of those too. And now I'm drinking an Allagash White. And we're drinking out of the bottle today. We're going old school.
Racism while maintaining a positive self-image in many ways. For example, rationalizing racial segregation as unfortunate but necessary to access good schools. Rationalizing that our workplaces are virtually all white because people of color just don't apply.
What?
Avoiding direct racial language and using racially coded terms such as urban, underprivileged, diverse, sketchy, and good neighborhoods. Denying that we
Dude, can we just acknowledge that there are some sketchy neighborhoods in every city? And I'm sorry, that's not racist. That's just reality. Yeah, Legion of Reason says, heads I win, tails you lose. Yes, exactly. Precisely.
We have few cross-racial relationships by proclaiming how diverse our community or workplace is, and attributing inequality between whites and people of color to causes other than racism. Consider a conversation I had with a white friend. She was telling me about a white couple who she knew who had just moved to New Orleans and bought a house for a mere $25,000. Of course, she immediately added, they also had to buy a gun, and Joan is afraid to leave the house. I immediately knew they had bought a home in a Black neighborhood. This was a moment of white racial bonding between this couple who shared the story of racial danger and my friend, and then between my friend and me as she repeated the story. Through this tale, the four of us fortified familiar images of the horror of Black space and drew boundaries between us and them without ever having to directly name race or openly express our disdain for Black space. Notice that the need for a gun is a key part of this story. It would not have the degree of social capital it holds if the emphasis were on the price of the house alone.
So she made a judgment about a neighborhood that, okay, this is Robin DiAngelo literally illustrating to you that she is a racist, that she makes racist assumptions. She assumed all of this.
Rather, the story's emotional power rests on why a house would be that cheap. Because it's in a Black neighborhood where white people literally might not get out alive. Yet while very negative and stereotypical representations of Blacks were reinforced in that exchange, not naming race provided plausible deniability. In fact, in preparing to share this incident, I texted my friend and asked her the name of the city her friends had moved to. I also wanted to confirm my assumption that she was talking about a Black neighborhood. I share the text exchange here. Hey, what city did you say your friends had bought a house in for $25,000? She replies, New Orleans. They said they live in a very bad neighborhood and they each have to have a gun to protect themselves. I wouldn't pay 5 cents for that neighborhood. I reply, oops. I assume it's a Black neighborhood? Yes, you get what you pay for. I'd rather pay $500,000 and live somewhere where I wasn't afraid. I reply, I wasn't asking because I want to live there. I'm writing about this in my book.
So she's just admitted that she threw her friend under the bus to get a good story for her book. Congratulations, Robin. You just proved that you're like an evil bitch. Reasonability, she is projecting her racial ideals on all whites. And we have to give reasonability gets extra bonus points today for WHYTES. Whites with a Y. Congratulations. Alexandra says she is so gross. Yes, she is.
The way that white people talk about race without ever coming out and talking about race. She had a very interesting response to that.
This is just a lesson, because if Robin DiAngelo ever texts you anything, do not answer. Do not answer those texts. You will end up in her next book. Not that Robin DiAngelo would ever text anyone in this chat, and certainly not me.
I wouldn't want you to live there because it's too far away from me. Notice that when I simply ask what city the house is in, she repeats the story about the neighborhood being so bad that her friends need guns. When I ask if the neighborhood is Black, she's comfortable confirming that it is. But when I tell her that I'm interested in how whites talk about race without talking about race, she switches the narrative. Now her concern is about not wanting me to live so far away. This is a classic example of aversive racism, holding deep racial disdain that surfaces in daily discourse, but not being able to admit it because the disdain conflicts with our self-image and professed beliefs. Now, readers may be asking themselves, but if the neighborhood is really dangerous, why is acknowledging this danger a sign of racism? Research in implicit bias has shown that perceptions of criminal activity are influenced by race. White people will perceive dangers simply by the presence of Black people. We cannot trust our perceptions when it comes to race and crime.
White people will perceive danger merely because Black people was there? No, that is not true. That is like, what evidence does she have that white people perceive racism merely based on the presence of Black people? That's projection, Robin. That's literal projection. Hi, Deb. The reason we learn. We're glad you're here.
But regardless of whether the neighborhood is actually more or less dangerous than other neighborhoods, what is salient about this exchange is how it functions racially and what that means for the white people engaged in it. For my friend and me, this conversation did not increase our awareness of the danger of some specific neighborhood. Rather, the exchange reinforced our fundamental beliefs about Black people. Toni Morrison uses the term race talk to capture, quote, the explicit insertion into everyday life of racial signs and symbols that have no meaning other than positioning African Americans into the lowest level of the racial hierarchy, unquote. Casual race talk is
It doesn't benefit Robin DiAngelo at all to position African Americans in the lowest level of the racial hierarchy, does it?
It's a key component of white racial framing because it accomplishes the interconnected goals of elevating whites while demeaning people of color. Race talk always implies a racial us and them. So folks who have seen me present before know that I use this metaphor, and I do tend to think in metaphors. And as I do the work that I do and I talk on a daily basis to white people, I literally got this image in my mind of a dock or a pier. And what it signifies for me are two things. One, how surface.
Okay, I just got to stop and do a quick shout out to Woot Woot on Odyssey, because I am simulcasting this not only on my main channel on YouTube, but also on my second channel on YouTube, which is actively Unwoke, and also on Odyssey, which you should all join, which is I think honestly, Odyssey is like the best YouTube alternative. And then also on Rockfin as well, which is like a close second to Odyssey for me, is like the best YouTube alternative. I'm simulcasting right now on all 4 of these platforms. And I just want to thank Woot Woot for the hyper chat over on Odyssey. I appreciate it, my friend.
Are superficial our narratives are. But also the dock, if you look from above, appears to be floating on the water, but it's not. There's an entire structure submerged under the water that props that dock up. It rests on literally pillars anchored into the ocean floor. And everything I do in my work is trying to get us off the top of the dock and under there to examine those pillars. Because despite all the bullshit on top of the dock, our outcomes have not changed.
I actually have written the definition of CRT. It is actually pinned to the top of my Twitter page right now. My Twitter handle is Dr. Karlyn B. It's, I think I'm displaying it somewhere, aren't I? Yes, I am. I am displaying it in my little video. But if you actually go to my Twitter page right now, twitter.com/Dr. Karlyn B, it's actually pinned right to the top. So I have it written down.
Right? So we have to ask ourselves, what's going on? So as I listen to these narratives, I think about them in two overall categories: color blind and color celebrate. Right? So let's start with the first set, color blind. Probably the number one.
Okay. We need to pause on the issue of color blindness. So color blindness is something that the woke try to paint as a bad thing. What color blindness actually means, the actual definition of it, is that you do not treat people differently based on the color of their skin. It's not that you can't see color. It's a horrible misnomer because anyone can see color. Listen, dude, if I have a black person standing in front of me, unless they have very light skin, I'm going to be able to tell that they're black. If I have an Hispanic person standing in front of me, unless they have very light skin, I'm going to be able to tell that they're Hispanic, okay? We can all see color. Excuse me. The idea of color blindness is not that you don't see color, it's that you don't treat people differently based on the color of their skin. And people like Robin DiAngelo know this. She knows this. But what they do is they try to distort it to say, well, you're just saying that you don't see race. And how could you not see race? Racism is everywhere. So I actually really encourage you guys, don't use the term colorblindness. Don't do the thing that a lot of you guys do, which is you use these terms just to prove that you can. Don't do that. It creates an unnecessary argument. There are many ways that you can talk about these issues without using the term colorblind. And frankly, it's a really poorly named term in terms of marketing it to everyday average people. So I don't actually recommend people use the term colorblind because it just creates more problems than it solves. You have to think strategically about these things. A lot of times people that watch this sort of stuff, they're like, I'm going to use the term colorblind just to prove that I can. Well, you end up creating problems for the rest of us that are actually trying to make a real fight at this stuff. So please, I understand it is the wrong definition. They're using the wrong definition, but you are not helping when you use the word that sounds like it's the definition that they're using just to prove a point. You're not helping. You're actually hurting the situation when you do this.
Colorblind racial narrative is, I was taught to treat everyone the same. Anybody ever heard that one? Okay. Let me just tell you,
I've read
when I
her
hear
book.
this from a white person, and I hear it frequently, there's a bubble over my head. And it has a few things in it. The first thing is, oh, this person doesn't understand basic socialization.
Yes, Robin, not everyone has gone and gotten a PhD in sociology, as it turns out. Not everyone in the world has wasted their money to go get a PhD in sociology.
This person doesn't understand culture.
I literally just talked about being on Odyssey. I am streaming live on Odyssey right now. Literally streaming live on Odyssey right now. Just talked about it. You guys have got to look me up on platforms before you conclude that I'm not on the platform. Honestly, I hear this all the time. Karlyn, why aren't you on Odyssey? I literally am. Nura says, of course she would say that outcomes haven't changed. Otherwise, why would we pay her so much money? Exactly. MB says, you should compare what she said and wokesters are saying / doing to what Malcolm X said about white liberals. They're proving him right. It's disgusting. Yes, they are. Yes, I am live. Right now. Right now, we are live on the internet.
Ooh, this person is not particularly self-aware.
I do. Okay. You're making a joke, but I do actually have a MySpace profile. Right when all the censorship started happening, I did actually go back and create a MySpace. And I believe it's myspace.com/Dr. Karlyn B. I could be wrong about that, but I actually do have a MySpace. I don't really use it, but I do have it just in case. I was like, make MySpace great again, Trump. Wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be funny if Trump bought MySpace and then he made the slogan, "Make MySpace great again," I think that would be like the best thing that's ever happened. Tech Priest Fisher says CRT, the war that will go on until the stars go out, space grows cold, and the universe dies. Then we shall all be equal.
And I need to give a heads up to the white folks in the room. When people of color hear us say this, they're generally not thinking, all right, I am talking to a woke white person right now.
Okay, I just want to ask in the chat because I know that I have people of color in the chat. I know I have non-white people in the chat. If you are offended by the term people of color, I'm using their language. How many people of color in the chat? If you are a person of color in the chat, type Y into the chat if you are offended at the idea that I will not treat you differently based on the color of your skin. Type N into the chat if you want me to not treat you differently based on the color of your skin. So Y if you are offended, N you don't care. You actually want me to. Okay, I'm doing a horrible job because apparently I have people of color in the chat that are like, I'm offended when you don't. Okay, never mind. That was a horrible. I'm gonna blame the beer. Never mind. Let's throw that little game. Okay, N. Now we're getting some N's. Yes. If people of color do not want me to treat you differently based on the color of your skin, type N. I'm switching it up. It's the beer. That's what it is. It's the beer. I'm drinking
Wait. Form of eye rolling. And
you know what I just realized? I'm drinking Allagash White. I'm sure that's racist. I'm drinking a white beer. I'm drinking a white beer while watching a Robin DiAngelo talk about white fragility. That is obviously proof of my racism.
And actually, I recently co-facilitated with a Black woman who said, that is the most dangerous white person to me. Okay? So it's not functioning the way we think it is. And this is another piece of humility for us. We are the least qualified to determine whether we understand this or not. Right? Because so often the things that we think convey that are not conveying that.
For people of color in the chat, does Robin DiAngelo speak for you? Yes or no?
And all of these are within that, it's in the past, just everyone struggles. My parents weren't racist. That's why I'm not racist. Oh, my parents were racist. That's why I'm not racist. Doesn't matter really what we say first. What comes next must be I'm not racist. So-and-so just happened to be, but it has nothing to do with race. And it also has nothing to do with why no one in the office gets along with her. And this is another one I actually asked white folks to remove from their vocabulary. Oh, by the way, along with reverse racism, which there's no such thing.
You're right. Yes,
right?
Yes, Robin, correct. There is no such thing as reverse racism. There is only racism. There is no such thing as reverse racism. We have found a point of agreement, Robin. You and I agree that reverse racism is a made-up thing because there is only racism. That's all there is racism. If you treat people differently based on the color of their skin, if you make assumptions about a group of people based purely on the color of their skin, you are a racist.
Right. Remove from your vocabulary anything on the topic of race that begins with just happen to be regardless, including that your neighborhood just happened to be white. Right?
I grew up in Vermont. My neighborhood just happened to be white.
Yes, but at the human level, when we make that move, right? Get race off the table and let's position some kind of shared universal experience. There isn't one in this physical plane that we live in a society deeply separate and unequal by race. So I call these colorblind because they basically say, I don't see it, and if I see it, it has no meaning.
If you drink anything but the darkest stout beer, you're obviously a racist.
And there's a question that has never failed me in my efforts to uncover how we pull this off.
It's a good question.
And that question is not, is this true or is this false? Because if we apply that question, we're going to argue and argue and argue. The question that has never failed me is, how do these narratives function in the conversation? How does it function? And If we ask that question, we can see that all of these narratives function to exempt the person from any part of the problem. All of them take race off the table. All of them close rather than open the exploration. And in doing that, all of them protect the current racial hierarchy and the white position within it. It doesn't have to be your intention. And I'll just be blunt. I'm not interested in your intention. I'm interested in how this functions. What is the impact of these narratives?
It's not about your intention. It is about the impact of your actions. Your intention doesn't matter. It doesn't mean if you didn't intend to be racist. All that matters is your impact. And if you are white, you are inherently racist. Guys, just so you know, I will, once we get done with watching this video and making fun of it, right around the time I'm like reaching good and drunk. That's the level that I'm reading, because I'm already like a beer and a half in. I've had like half of this beer. So I'm probably going to be pretty drunk in the next 40 minutes or so. So after we finish this video, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do call-ins. We're going to do call-ins where some of you can join the stream and we can have a chat about the nightmare that we just watched, okay? Because that seems like nothing could go wrong with that plan. So stick around and mount that like button if you haven't already.
They are closers, not openers. Well, probably the folks in this room, we're beyond colorblindness, right? What do we say? Right?
Look, I have people of color in my family.
Okay.
You can be a white person and literally be married to a person of color, and Robin DiAngelo's still gonna say, nope, racist. It doesn't matter if your children aren't white. You're still a racist.
We say things like this. Oh, I work in a very diverse environment. If we can't say that, and many of us can't, we'll come up with some kind of proximity. Okay? I have people of color in my family. Me? I'm not racist. I used to live in New York.
Don't you just love that there is a whole room full of people who are just like, oh my god, it's so funny, this idea that you can be married to a person of color and not be racist? How silly white person.
This one will get used interchangeably with, I'm not racist, I'm from Canada. I'm not racist, I'm from Hawaii.
MB is new here. On my channel, we do not smash the like button. On my channel, we mount the like button. That's what we do on this channel. Mounting is an act of empowerment or something.
I'm not racist, I'm from Europe. I'm not racist, I was in the military. Apparently there are no racism in any of those places. When I hear that one, I used to live in New York, I was thinking, oh my God, you walked by people of color and didn't lose your shit? That's amazing. Okay.
You know, Robin, I'm going to go into town and see if the evil white... I bet my Oreo money is going to be taken just fine. Best of luck to you, Tech Priest Fisher.
So how many of you in a conversation with a white person have heard some
mount it
version
hard
of those narratives right there, those three? Okay. All right. And if we're going to be really honest, we've said some version of these narratives, right? That last one, sociologists actually have a term for it. It's called the inoculation case. I've been near people of color and it stripped me of my racism.
You know, Robin thinks that's funny, but apparently Robin doesn't actually have any black friends and didn't know any black people growing up. So she might laugh at this idea, but they're still doing something that she hasn't herself done. I'm just saying.
And I want you to notice how often white people invoke proximity as evidence. This is important because it helps reveal what's under the dock. It helps reveal what we think racism is, that we would invoke proximity to show that we're not racist.
Do it, Anthony.
And I need to understand what I think racism is.
Do it.
If I'm going to unpack my role in it, right? So let's do some discourse analysis. Let's think critically about these three narratives.
That is actually an SJW thing. You know what's funny is I had an SJW like trolling me on Twitter the other day, and in her I think it was in her bio she said I'm a discourse. I analyze discourse, and I was like, okay, you analyze discourse. That sounds like an SJW thing. And then she just said discourse analysis. SJW confirmed.
When a white person invokes one of these narratives in a conversation about racism, they're giving you their evidence, right? Racism comes up, I say this is my evidence. In my mind, what's that my evidence of? What do I want to make sure you know? I'm not racist, all right? So, in order to be good at evidence, it must distinguish me from a racist. So apparently a racist cannot do these things, or this wouldn't be good evidence. So a racist cannot work 3 cubicles down from a person of color.
Really?
Could not have people come in their family, and would find living in New York intolerable, even though I could think of at least one racist that lives in New York. So.
Don't you love how Robin takes general statements that she completely distorts the meaning of and applies them to an entire population of people based on their skin color? I really find it funny that Robin, mocks people who shit on her for making generalizations, and then she's like, "I know a racist that lives in New York. Ha 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 ha! Aren't I cheeky?"
Now, I have yet to let go of that little joke because I do enjoy it,
Obvi.
but it does rest on the good bad binary. I'm on the same continuum.
Although Trump lived in DC at this point, so now he lives in Florida.
The person I'm thinking of is on. Just want to be clear about that. Okay, so I'm going to just ask a rhetorical question to the people of color in this room, and I'm going to look at my dear friend Aisha over there and Paula, and I'm going to say, could a racist work 3 cubicles down from you?
All the time, all the time. Do you notice
yeah.
she asked like the only black lady in the room, do you think you have a racist working three cubicles down from you? Oh, of course I do. In the city of Seattle, there are all these racists running around the city of Seattle, according to the one black lady in Robin DiAngelo's lecture right now.
All right. People of color, do you have white people in your life who you love deeply and who on occasion reveal their internalized racial superiority? Their internalized racist assumptions about the world? Other white people, do you hear that? Could you even be married to them? And they could still? It doesn't disappear the day they fall in love with you? Okay.
Robin DiAngelo just said that you can be married to a person of color and still be a racist. This is the power of them changing definitions. This is why we have to watch these things. We have to know what definitions they're changing, because we can only fight back against it if we understand specifically what they are teaching people. And now we're getting to a point where there's so much of this stuff publicly available on the internet, we can make predictions about where they're going. I'm going to tell you what is the next step for critical race theory. I'm going to tell you right now what is the next step. They're going to change the name of critical race theory, because so many people right now know what critical race theory is. Critical race theory is at the it is peaking. A lot of people know what it is. A lot of people are pissed off about it. They're trying to convince people that they don't understand it. And the very next step after they try to convince people that they don't understand what critical race theory is they are going to change the definition or they're going to change the name rather of critical race theory. They're going to change the name to something else. So we need to keep a watchful eye on this, because that's absolutely their next step.
All right. So I hope I mock it a bit because it's ridiculous, right? But it's so ubiquitous. So we really just got to ask ourselves, well, what do I think it is, and what am I saying, and how is that functioning, right? And clearly this rests on that simplistic definition. Apparently a lot of white people think that a racist cannot tolerate any proximity, even the sight of people of color. And so if there's any friendliness across race, there cannot be racism. This is another thing that makes us so difficult in these conversations. So I'm just gonna put it right out here. As a result of being born and raised as a white person in this culture, I have a racist worldview. I have deep racist biases. I have developed racist patterns. And I have...
As a result of being born white in this culture, I have a deeply racist view. That's what she wants white people to say. I'm sure that's going to get clipped what I just said. But that's what she wants white people to say. As a result of being born white, I have been socialized to be racist, and I have deeply racist worldviews. That is their definition of racism. Anyone that was born and socialized to be white.
Investments in a system that has served me very well and is very comfortable for me, and it really helped me get over sexism and classism that I struggle with. And I also have investments in not seeing any of that, for what it would mean for my identity and what it would require of me in action. Right? Didn't choose it, don't want it, got it. And it's actually incredibly transformative and liberating to begin from that premise, so that you can begin to think, well, how's it coming out in me? So that I might be able to stop that or ameliorate that, rather than it's not coming out in me. I sometimes think if I went into the bathroom and I came out and the back of my dress was hiked into my pantyhose and my ass was showing, I sure hope you'd let me know. And I wouldn't say to you, how dare you suggest my ass is showing? And you better proceed as if it isn't.
So now Robin DiAngelo is comparing like a factual reality that can be observed with a made up reality that she made up specifically to make money. It is not the same thing. It is not the same thing. If you're dressed, I once wore, okay, fun story. Back in the day, I was once working long hours and commuting every single day for an hour each way. And one day I wore a dress inside out into the office. I did. I wore a dress completely inside out into the office. And my boss, well, she wasn't really my boss. A superior to me let me know, he's like, Karlyn, you need to go put the dress on the right side. Because it was like, it looked pretty similar, like inside out or right. It actually looked pretty similar. I have to like defend myself on this. It actually looked very similar. Okay. But I was told that I was wearing the dress inside out. You know what I did? I went to the bathroom and I changed the dress to be the right way. But that is completely different. That is an observable fact. You could actually look at me and observe that I was wearing a dress inside out. All right? Robin DiAngelo has completely made up this entire ideology. She has made up all of this. There is no data to support this. There are no references to support this. And she's saying that it is the same thing as an observable fact. White fragility is not the same thing as an observable fact.
And yet, you know, the worst fear of a white progressive is that we're going to say or do something racist. But by God, don't you dare say that I just said or did something racist. Rather than, thank you. You know, I didn't see why
I never made the mistake of wearing a dress inside out again, to my credit.
All right. I was in the Peace Corps. I marched in the 60s. I voted for Obama. I'm on the equity team. We could go on. I already know all this. I told you I've been to Costa Rica and tutored there for a week with the little children. And this is a real Seattle one. We don't like how white our neighborhood is, but we had to move here for the schools. What could we do? I think it's very disingenuous. I think we do like how white our neighborhoods are. And that's another conversation. All right, so these are not colorblind, these are color celebrate. I love it, right? And I'm gonna just say this. I love it in the right doses. I like it in the Montessori school with the children of the international workers that come from Microsoft.
We must fight racism, says the woman who says she is racist and supports critical race theory, and any honest people would view that CRT is racist indoctrination. All right, guys, I need to step away from the computer for just 1 second. I'm going to be back in like 1 minute. I swear. I just need to step away for 1 second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just play the video, and I want extra snark in the chat. I'm going to be looking when I come back, okay? But I have to step away for just like 1 second, and I will be right back, I promise. But I'm going to play the video in the meantime.
So again, if we apply the same question, not true, false, or right, wrong, but how do these narratives function in the conversation, we get the same answer. They all exempt the person from any part of the problem. They all take race off the table. They all close rather than open, and they all protect the current racial hierarchy and the white position within it. They're actually, in practice and impact, not any more progressive. And they have not changed our outcomes. So we have to get under here and see what's going on. And what I think is going on, what I think of as the linchpins of new racism.
Yeah, I can call that I had to pee.
Is the good bad binary. Man, that one's really effective.
I was not putting my dress on from the inside out. I just had to pee. Okay, that was all that had to go on. But I did it super quick.
Deep implicit bias, which you can't help but absorb. This precious ideology of individualism. At the same time, this idea that we don't speak from any particular position, but speak for all of humanity. And people of color speak for their group. And when we're interested in hearing about that, we'll ask them, but we'll cover everything else. Right?
Had to be
Any
fast.
people of color get asked to be on the equity team automatically.
Exactly.
When
I'm
it's
getting
not
old.
even necessarily.
Wait. Okay, so she's talking about being on the equity team. Okay, guys, fun fact. One of the very best things you can do to fight this nonsense is to get on your company's equity team. Get on their diversity team. Make sure that you can be in a position to choose the type of trainings that come into your organization. Because if you have to do this bullshit anyway, you might as well do like the least evil bullshit that you possibly can.
Your interest or, okay. Internalized superiority, which you cannot help but have if you are raised white in this culture. And in
Fake
some level of investment in not
news.
seeing this. And finally, the power of segregation to hold it all in place. The profound, I think for me, the most profound message of all is that I could call a white neighborhood good. I could call a school filled with all white teachers and white children a good school. That the fundamental message is that there's no inherent value in the perspectives or experiences of people of color.
What?
So these.
Wait, what? Did she just say that she assumes there was no what? Hang on.
Don't speak from any particular position, but speak for all of humanity. And people of color speak for their group. And when we're interested in hearing about that, we'll ask them, but we'll cover everything else. Right? Any people of color get asked to be on the equity team automatically when it's not even necessarily your interest or, okay. Internalized superiority, which you cannot help but have if you are raised white in this culture.
Internalized superiority, which you cannot help but have if you are raised white in this culture. She says over and over and over again, if you are white, you are racist. That is one of the bedrock foundational attitudes of critical race theory. And don't let anyone try to tell you differently, because you have the queen bee of goddamn critical race theory in pop culture right now telling you out of her own mouth that if you are raised white, you are a racist.
And in some level of investment in not seeing this. And finally, the power of segregation to hold it all in place. The profound, I think for me, the most profound message of all is that I could call a white neighborhood good. I could call a school filled with all white teachers and white children a good school. That the fundamental message is that there's no inherent value in the perspectives or experiences of people of color.
I am 100% going to clip her saying, there is no inherent value in the perspectives of people of color. That is 100% happening after this. What is this, 49 minutes, 57 seconds? I got you, Robin.
So these messages are raining down on us relentlessly, 24/7, and we don't have umbrellas.
I'm going to make a whole video just of clips of Robin DiAngelo saying racist things. That is absolutely happening.
Nothing could and nothing did exempt us from their forces. It's on us to figure out how they shape us, not if. Right? So all of this.
What the fuck? We're only on
sets up
chapter 4?
Some patterns. Right? Preference for racial segregation, lack of understanding what racism is, seeing ourselves as individuals, not understanding that we bring our history with us. History matters. It's a history of harm. Assuming everyone is having our experience, arrogance, lack of humility, unwillingness to listen, dismissing what we don't understand, apathy towards racial justice. You know, after, again, 20 plus years, I think most white people are pretty apathetic about racial injustice.
No, most white people are pretty apathetic about
Inability
you.
to or lack
Most white people are pretty apathetic about you because you're spewing bullshit to try to convince them that they're racist when they're not. You want to make people apathetic about something, Robin? Start telling them they're racist for how they were born and how they were raised. That's going to make people apathetic because fundamentally you've told them there is nothing you can do. There is nothing you can do to change the situation. You're just a racist. You just have to accept that you're a racist. If you want to work with me, you just have to accept that you're a racist white people.
lack of interest in sustaining relationships with people of color, wanting to jump over the hard personal work and get to solutions, confusing not agreeing with not understanding. Is it possible that you're not actually informed enough to disagree?
No.
You ever had somebody say, no, you misunderstood. No, you misunderstood.
I have watched thousands of hours of these trainings. I literally do a show every Friday at 3 p.m. on my channel on YouTube and Odyssey and Rockfin live. I literally do a show every Friday at 3 p.m. where we watch one of these trainings. Don't tell me I'm uninformed, Robin. I know exactly what you're saying. I'm watching you right now. She has one Kool-Aid drink from Jonestown.
Good. What if the person understood you perfectly? In fact, they even understood what you meant, and you don't understand how what you meant comes from a racist framework. The need to maintain white solidarity, right? That's the unspoken agreement amongst white people that we'll keep each other comfortable around our racism.
I can guarantee you I don't want to maintain any solidarity with Robin
Saving
DiAngelo.
face. I always like to say, you know, when I do a caucus group or something.
Guys, if you are white, this is only a question for the white people now. I guess no, I guess that's not true. I guess that's not true. I'm gonna retract that because I don't want to be racist. I want to include everyone. We want to have an inclusive chat. If you would like to maintain solidarity with Robin DiAngelo, please type Y into the chat. If you want solidarity with Robin DiAngelo, type Y. If you do not want solidarity with Robin DiAngelo, type N. Okay? Y for solidarity with Robin, N for not solidarity with Robin.
And the white people are afraid I might think they're racist. I think you're racist. I do.
I'm sorry. Okay, hang on.
Something, and the white people are afraid I might think they're racist. I think you're racist. I do.
Wow.
I think I am too. Right.
Oh my God! Did you just see that? Oh God. Okay, guys, we have to watch that again. I'm sorry. We have to watch that again. We have to do it again. That was awesome.
Racist. I do.
Wait, hang on. Shit, where the fuck was that? Where was it?
Confusing not agreeing with not understanding. Priorities, saving face. I always like to say, you know, when I do a caucus group or something and the white people are afraid I might think they're racist. I think you're racist. I do. I think I am too, right? But yeah, let's just.
Guys, Robin DiAngelo's not even drinking right now and she just admitted to being a racist. Robin DiAngelo just admitted that she thinks all white people are racist and that she thinks she's a racist herself. Literally. That's not even an exaggeration or a distortion. That's literally what she just said.
Like, let's be done with that. And actually your carefulness and you're hiding yourself and you're not contributing to the conversation won't actually change that assessment at all. And people of color don't find that to build trust. Defensiveness, of course, and a focus on intentions over impact. So when any of this is triggered, we get off our white racial equilibrium.
Oh, I'm going to clip it. Don't you worry.
What is white racial equilibrium? Well, racial comfort, that's for sure. Seeing ourselves as individuals, seeing ourselves as just human. Obliviousness, well, it's this funny, there's like a stew inside of white people that makes us really irrational on this topic. And I've tried to kind of identify some of those pieces.
There is a stew that makes white people irrational. I think it's a stew that makes them perfectly rational, Robin. It's a stew that indicates that you are spewing bullshit. That is what is going on. That is all it is. I think Robin DiAngelo might be possessed by a dead dictator. Jen, I would not be surprised. It would not surprise me at all. Okay, I need a third beer. I'm on beer 3. And I have to admit, guys, I have to say, I do actually just like the irony of me continuing to drink a white beer during Robin DiAngelo's talk on white fragility. Like, I feel like I have to continue in this pattern. I was gonna switch it up again, but like, it's just too good. It's just too much irony. I just have to.
But one of them is that we really are taught not to see this. So if you're a person of color scratching your head thinking, how can they not see this? Like, I just don't believe they don't see this. We actually really don't see it. Oh, and hell yes, we know it. And we do see it, but we cannot admit that. It's both these things are actually true. We don't see it and we do see it, but can't admit to it. And it's part of what makes us so irrational. Right? Apathy, dominance, control. Don't name.
We'll do
I'm
that
working
next.
on this huge contract with racial justice for a large organization, and they asked us to take the word white out of all the slides. That's
okay. So fun fact, this was actually one of the last corporate trainings that I did in person before the lockdown. So I had seen this trend. So if you guys have ever seen so I have a keynote speech that I did. There's a video of it on this channel or on my main channel called Playing Politics, the Psychology of the Human Workplace. It's a really good talk if you guys ever want to go and watch it. But in that talk, I use almost entirely illustrated slides, or I use slides of like random mundane things that don't involve people, because for the last several years, I noticed this trend when I was doing corporate training of people would tell me, Karlyn, we really love your presentation, but you just have too many white people in your slides. And so I slowly started to transition away from just having any people in my slides at all, because every single time I would do a training, they'd be like, Karlyn, we really love your presentation. You just have too many white people in your slides. Well, the very last corporate training that I did in person, because I have to do them all via Zoom now, but the very last one I did in person was I had removed all white people. There were 0 white people in the entire presentation. I swear. Any slides I had that had people in them had people of color. There were 0 white people in the presentation. What did the people say to me when I was done the presentation? Karlyn, we really loved your presentation, but you had too many white people in your slides. I swear. And I had to maintain a straight face. I had to maintain a straight face because they hadn't paid me yet. So I had to be like, oh, well, yeah, that's good feedback. There were 0 white people in the entire presentation. And they were still like, Karlyn, you had too many white people in the presentation. I swear. It's like an automatic reaction at this point.
a great example, isn't it, of white fragility? So don't name white. Don't name that's our racial equilibrium, right? And entitlement to people of color's bodies. Resma Menakem talks about, it's really been only in the last couple of decades that people of color have had dominion over their own bodies.
It's only been in the last couple of decades, in the last 20 years, that people of color have had dominion over their own bodies. I'm sorry, did the Civil Rights Act of 1964 not happen? Michelle says, so, like in fiction, where the protagonists team up with a villain to fight other villains, do they think we need to hire a racist to fight racism? Because only racists know how to fight. Yeah, that seems to be what they think. I swear.
And so entitlement to people of color's bodies comes out in lots of ways, right? From just violating the space, to touching the bodies, to expecting you to carry the emotional burden of race, all of that. But you want to know, for me, like a really great example of the white fragility triggered when my entitlement or white entitlement to Black bodies is a man quietly, solemnly, and respectfully going on one knee. And the eruption right? The criminalization, right?
The fuck is happening right now?
The
Oh!
great example of white fragility, and it connected to this last.
Is she saying that people being upset at Colin Kaepernick is racist? That's what she's saying, right? Is like Colin Kaepernick was just taking a knee, and that's all he was doing, and people erupted because they couldn't stand to see a black man take a knee. That's what she's saying, right? I'm pretty sure that's what she's saying. Yeah. Okay.
Last bullet here is the eruption of umbrage and criminalization when a black man simply went down on one knee respectfully. Talking about Colin Kaepernick. What an example.
Yes, Colin Kaepernick. Stunning and brave. Stunning and brave,
So,
Colin. Stunning and brave.
What interrupts our
Snaps for
racial
Colin.
equilibrium?
Snaps.
Well, if you challenge objectivity, if you talk openly about race, right? If you challenge white entitlement to racial comfort, if you challenge to the expectation that people of color will serve us and do our work for us, if you break with white solidarity, you challenge white racial innocence, right? Oh, and by the way, you can download all this on handouts from my website.
No kidding. Oh my God, I'm totally going to clip that. I'm going to clip Robin DiAngelo saying a bunch of racist shit from this presentation. And the very last clip that I'm going to edit in is going to be Robin DiAngelo saying, oh, by the way, you can download this on handouts from my website. No one steal my idea before this is done.
Oh, wait a minute. And it's in the book. The book. All right. Challenge individualism, challenge to meritocracy, challenge to white authority. All right.
I'm
Challenge
downloading
to
this
white
presentation right now.
centrality. Challenge to universalism. Right? Suggesting that maybe, in fact, we don't speak for all of humanity. We speak from a particular perspective, and it's deeply limited. Okay? So this leads to white fragility.
Oh
we actually
my
have the poster boy
God.
for white fragility right here in the front row. Because I'm married to him, and I made him pose in the kitchen.
That's her husband? She put her husband in her presentation. Okay, poll. How many people, I know, I'm going to ask a question that I know you don't want to think about, okay? I'm going to preface this. I know you don't want to think about this question, but we're going to ask this question because I'm already 2 beers in. If you think that Robin DiAngelo and her husband ever have sex, put Y into the chat. If you think that Robin DiAngelo and her husband do not ever have sex ever, put N into the chat. That is probably
And he's
correct.
like, everyone's going to think I'm an asshole now. And I'm like,
Yes,
yeah, they are.
yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yeah, we do. Yeah, it's
Open
true.
the dictionary, look up white fragility. They're going to see your picture. Okay, so back to something more serious. Sorry.
Wow.
I couldn't resist.
Can you imagine? Being married to someone and accusing them of white fucking fragility? Oh my God. To Robin DiAngelo's husband, you deserve better. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you found yourself in this position. I'm sure she was once a lovely person when you met her. I'm sure she hadn't gotten sucked into any of this and she was normal, but you deserve better. There is a woman out there that will love you and not make you a poster child for racism. God.
So when all of this insular, coddled environment builds an inability to bear witness, inability to have capacity to hold the discomfort. I've been thinking lately that part of what it means to be white is to never.
I feel like we all need to start a rescue strategy for Robin DiAngelo's husband right now. We need to start a plan to get him. Robin DiAngelo's husband, we can help you. Reach out to me. Call me. Call me. We can help you get out of this situation. I'm so sorry that you're in this situation.
Never have to bear witness.
Don't
to the
point out
pain
their
of racism
hypocrisy,
on people of color.
TPS.
And never having to bear witness to the
Me
pain
neither,
I've caused to people
Ashley.
of color. Never having to be accountable to that pain, right? And all the ways that I push off accountability, right? And so when I thought of this term, white fragility, the fragility part, we're fragile in that we can barely tolerate the slightest challenge, right? I mean, I'll show you my emails. Just the suggestion that being white has meaning will set us off. But there's a continuum. And so we're fragile in that way, but it's not fragile at all in its impact. It's really effective, right? I need you to stop. I need to get back into my position and my entitlement and my comfort, and I will do what I need to do to get you to stop. And I think that white fragility functions as a kind of white racial bullying. We make it so miserable for people of color to talk to us about their experiences, to call us in, that most of the time they don't because it's not worth getting punished more.
I need to add call in to the bingo card.
And trust me, they take home so much of it because it so rarely goes well. Right, and I'm just ask a rhetorical question.
Yeah. Why did Robin marry why did Robin marry a person of color? I think it is very racist of Robin to have married a white man. I think that is just proof of her inherent white fragility that she married a white man.
Color in the room. How often have you tried to talk to white people about our inevitable and often racist behaviors and have that go well for you? Okay, I mean, literally, like not even once, right? And so it.
Just a reminder that Robin DiAngelo would normally make around $25,000 for this talk. That is not a lie. That is not made up. That is not an exaggeration. Robin DiAngelo would normally make around $25,000 minimally for this talk. $25,000 was the entire annual salary that I made in my first job. Robin DiAngelo would normally make minimally $25,000 for this talk. Stick around, guys. In about 20 minutes, we're going to do call-ins, and you can tell me what you think of this presentation. In the meantime, mount that like button, subscribe to whatever channel you happen to be watching on, whether it's my main channel, Actively Unwoke, whether it's on Odyssey or Rockfin, make sure you subscribe. I do this every Friday at 3 p.m.
It's weaponized defensiveness. It's weaponized hurt feelings. It's weaponized by denial and obliviousness. And so I'm not the 1%. I've never even been a manager.
Yes, you are.
But I can control the people of color in my orbit through white fragility, right?
I can control the people of color in my orbit. That's getting clipped.
And so I also think of it as a form of everyday white racial control. You can be in my orbit, and I'll use you as diversity cover, as long as you keep me comfortable. But if you challenge me, you're going to become a personal problem, and you're going to be ejected. And boy, do we see this in the workplace. We want you on the committee. We're not going to pay you anymore, but we do want you on the committee.
Dude, being on committees is part of being an employee. It's called other duties as assigned. It is in literally every job description. Guess what, Robin? White people have other duties as assigned too. It is in almost every job description on the planet. You don't get paid anymore when you're doing something that is included in your fucking job description.
As long as you don't actually do what we asked you to be on the committee to do, right? All right.
Thank you, Ben.
Oh, I got to read a piece from 112. I got a story that I really want to read.
I hope it's the one. I hope Robin reads the story that she wrote about in her book about Robin was invited to a potluck. and the potluck was in a park. And you know how in parks, when people get together in parks, they have these different pavilions, and you might have one family in one pavilion and another family in another pavilion. Robin tells a story in White Fragility about how she was invited to a potluck in a park, and she came over and she saw two different families. And one was a white family and one was a black family. And Robin was like, "Oh, I hope I'm not going to have potluck with the black family." That was her attitude. She literally told a racist story in the book about how she didn't want to go have potluck with a black family. I swear to God, this is true. It's in the book.
Okay, so I was working with a group of educators who had been meeting regularly for at least 8 sessions. The group was composed of the equity teams for a public school system, self-selected by people who wanted to support equity efforts in their schools. I had just finished an hour-long presentation titled, Seeing the Water, Whiteness in Daily Life. This presentation is designed to make visible the relentless messages of white superiority, etc. The room appeared to be with me, open and receptive, with many nodding along in agreement. Then a white teacher raised her hand and told a story about an interaction she had as she drove alongside a group of parents protesting the achievement gap in her school. And she then proceeded to imitate one mother in particular who offended her. "You don't understand our children," this mother had called out to her as she drove by. By the stereotypical way that the white teacher imitated the mother, we all knew that the mother was Black. The room seemed to collectively hold its breath at her imitation, which was bordering on racial mockery. While the teacher's concluding point was that, on reflection, she came to realize that the mother was right and that she really didn't understand children of color, the emotional thrust of the story was her umbrage at the mother for making this assumption. For the room, the emotional impact was on her stereotypical imitation of an angry Black woman. As this story came to a close, I had a decision to make.
Thank you, Cars.
Should I act with integrity and point out what was racially problematic about the story? After all, making racism visible was literally what I had been hired to do. Further, several African American teachers in the room had certainly
Mike, thank you, Mike. What is she talking about? Don't speak for me. She has no clue. She is dirty, and people clap to what she's saying. That's sad, dude. It really is. It really is, Mike.
notice the reinforcement of a racist stereotype. To not intervene would be, yet again, another white person choosing to protect white feelings rather than interrupt racism. A white person who billed herself as a racial justice consultant, no less. Yet I would be taking the risk of losing the group, given the likelihood that the woman would become defensive, shut down, and the room would split into those who thought
You know
I
what
had
she's reading
mistreated
from?
her and those.
You know what she's reading from? She's reading from a chapter called White Woman's Tears. I believe that's chapter 9 in her book. Hang on. Let me find it. Look at this. Oh, it's chapter 11. I'm wrong. She has a chapter titled White Woman's Tears in her book. And this is an entire chapter about how white people break down crying in her trainings, and white women especially, and how this is just a manifestation of their white fragility, because the white women are crying. I swear to God, this is true. She says that white women break down crying in her training because this is what they used to do to get Black men in trouble. And you can't coddle white women when they're crying and displaying their white fragility in these trainings, because this just used to be the strategy the white women would use to get Black men in trouble for doing things I can't talk about on YouTube because I'll get demonetized.
Who didn't. This happens every time
Fuck
you actually
Vosh.
call it out in the moment, in the room, right? And I decided to do what would maintain my integrity, and I called it out. And I called it out as diplomatically as I could. I just said, oh, teachable moment. I'm going to ask you not to tell that story again. Here's why. Here's how you could tell it in a way that doesn't reinforce that. We went back and forth a little bit. But to make a long story short, of course, the room did erupt in twos. She left the group. She quit the group. This was the 8th session for equity teams. And again, all the focus was on had I or hadn't I mistreated her, right? And this is often what happens.
So
So
Robin
white-
Robin just talked about how she was an ineffectual corporate trainer. And then she's like, well, it was just her fault because she had white women's tears. That entire story was about how Robin DiAngelo was an ineffectual corporate trainer. That's what you just heard.
Receiving feedback kind of above and below, right? What feelings do white people have when we often try to give them feedback on our racist patterns, right? Tell me if you don't recognize these. Attacked, silenced,
Crying.
shamed, accused, insulted, judged, angry, scared, outraged. Yeah.
Can you imagine having to spend 8 hours with Robin DiAngelo as your trainer? That is enough to make anyone cry. That is enough to make anyone withdraw. That is enough to make anyone silent or arguing or denying or focusing on intentions. Oh, if you focus on intentions, that's just a sign of your white fragility. If you talk about how people have positive intent, that is a sign of your white fragility. Okay, Robin.
Now, how do we act when we feel this way? Right?
Dude, Ken,
No?
Ken, hang on, listen. I very nearly, and this is the God's honest truth, when I read White Fragility, I got about halfway through it and I started descending into madness. I'm not joking. There's a video of me that I took while I was in the midst of reading this book where I was literally crying and like basically being like, make it stop. And that it was real. That was not an act. That was not to make content. I was actually descending into madness in the reading of that book. That was real. Mount that like button if you haven't already. Thank you.
We withdraw, we cry, we go silent, we argue, we deny, we focus on our intentions, we seek forgiveness, we explain, we insist there was a misunderstanding. Yep. And so what kind of claims do we make to justify behaving this way and feeling this way? I know people of color. I marched in the 60s. I took this in college. I was a minority in Japan. The real oppression is class.
That's actually
You
true, by the way.
misunderstood me, you're playing the
That's actually true. What she just said, and she's using it as an excuse. The real oppression is class. That's something white people say when they don't want to be racist. That's actually true. That is true. The real oppression is socioeconomic. And if these people put half the energy into socioeconomic disparity as they do into racial disparity, our country would be significantly better off and every gap would be closed.
race card. If you knew me or understood me, you'd know I can't be racist. This is not welcoming to me. You're making me feel guilty. I want to say something about shame. Whenever white people jump to a narrative really quickly on racism, I'm always suspicious of it. And shame is one we jump to really fast. White progressives really, really like to lean on how much racial shame they feel. And
That's gonna get
I would
clipped.
actually ask you to think about on a daily basis, how often do you, if you are white, feel racial shame? Seriously. Well, first of all, probably just when racism comes up, and even then, so maybe 2% of the time, right? I was in New York recently, and I stepped over a homeless man who was black on my way into Whole Foods, and I felt shame for just a minute, but then Rainier cherries are in season, and I forgot all about it. I mean, I'm serious, like that's how that functions. I really don't think we feel that shame that much.
I'm sorry. I don't feel I'm gonna flat out say it. I do not feel shame for walking by a homeless person and then going about my business. I don't feel shame for that. I'm sorry. I mean, maybe that makes me racist. I'm sure it probably does, but I do not actually feel shame for that. You want to know why? Because everyone has different experiences in life. Everyone makes different decisions that lead them to the place they are in life. And it is not my fault that someone else is homeless. It is not my fault. It is not my doing. And it doesn't negate the fact that I need to shop for groceries.
But even if we do, then you have to ask yourself, how is it functioning? What does it do for you? What is the cultural capital that you get from that? And if you can't answer that it's somehow moving you forward in your anti-racist efforts, then you're going to have to get through it, right? Okay. It's just one little innocent thing. Some people find offense, you hurt my feelings, this is political correctness, I don't feel safe. I'll just really quickly say the word safe coming out of the mouths of white people on topic of racism is illegitimate. Because what does safety mean from a position of social, historical, institutional, cultural power and privilege? No, it's generally we don't feel comfortable. But that doesn't have as much cultural capital. It's not as precious. Problem is your tone. And I know what it is to be oppressed.
Adrian said I was
if
just
we
muted.
Think about the doc, right?
I muted myself accidentally, and I made a comment. I was basically mocking her. That's all it was. I was mocking her. That was all it was. I said something like, "Robin, you are so stunning and brave for something or other." I don't even remember. It wasn't that funny. I'm sorry. That was my bad. I muted myself. Sorry.
The feelings, the behaviors,
It's the beer.
the claims. What could be the underlying assumptions that would lead us to make these claims, right? Well, as a white person, I will be the judge of whether racism has occurred.
I unmuted myself. I'm back.
My learning's finished. I know all I need to know. Racism can only be intentional, not having intended.
I muted myself. That means I'm not racist anymore, right? I muted myself. I literally, hang on. I literally silenced myself. That means I've defeated my own racism, right?
I can't experience racial privilege. If I'm a good person, I can't be racist. My unexamined perspective is equal to an informed one. I'm entitled to remain comfortable. So
Cindy has a bingo. Congratulations, Cindy. How many other people got a bingo today with Unwoke Bingo? We will be doing call-ins in about 10 minutes. And in fact, I'm actually going to put, guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the link to call in the chat in about 5 minutes, and you can actually join the stream and we can have a little chat for like a couple minutes, and you can tell me what you thought of this presentation, but I will be doing that in about 5 minutes. So get yourself ready. If you want to turn on your webcam, make yourself look presentable because you're going to be on the internet. So I will be doing that in about 5 minutes.
So you have made a very serious social breach. As a white person, I know the best way to challenge racism, and you're doing it wrong. Nice people cannot be racist. If I can't see it, it's not legitimate.
I'm totally going to watch that movie tonight.
If I have any proximity to people of color, I can't be racist. If I have no proximity to people of color, I can't be racist because I'm racially innocent. I would make a case that white people who grew up on farms and rural environments and there are no people of color around actually are less sheltered from racism because you are left to rely on the most problematic sources for your understanding of people of color. My worldview is objective and yours isn't. I don't know what else could be functioning under there, right? So how does all that function? Maintains whites.
All right, I'm going to take another quick bathroom break before we do call-ins, but I'm going to leave the video playing and I'll be right back. And you guys know I was quick last time. I was like under a minute last time. I'll be right back. I'm going to leave the video playing and then we're going to do some call-ins.
Solidarity closes off self-reflection, minimizes, silences the discussion, makes white people the victims, protects a limited worldview, takes race off the table, focuses on the messenger, not the message, rallies more resources to white people, protects racism. I could get into this really deep, but here's what I just want to say about this. The reason I like this picture when I do presentations is because for me, this is an amplified visual of institutional power. And if I walked in that room as a woman, because that would be the salient identity for me in that room, it would be visceral to me, the lifetime of entitlement exuding out of these men's pores.
Listen, I'm old, okay? Once you
And
Brit
so
pop the cherry, you don't go
if
back.
you can see that, if you can see not only the lifetime of entitlement, but if you were to suggest to them that maybe they should have some women or people of color in that group, I can't know, but I believe to my core, they would feel contempt. Because they don't see the
Magic.
perspectives of women and people of color as valuable. I believe that to my core. I don't know
Told
them,
ya.
but I'm pretty damn sure. If I can see it in them, then, and I don't relate to them, right? But what version of that is coming from my pores? What version of that is visceral for people of color when I'm in the room, right? So women of color, you want to be the one that goes in there and helps those white women see their racism? Does that sound good? All by yourself? They need some diversity. All right. So my point is, I can be in this room experiencing sexism and patriarchy,
I am old.
and I can be in this room perpetrating
Listen, if you're not like 40 plus, you don't understand, okay? The struggle is real.
racism. Right? White women don't actually land any more softly on people of color. And I think when we don't back people of color, the betrayal and the hurt is deeper. Because we have a potential way in, and we use it often as a way out. If you don't think I'm an angry feminist, ask the poster boy for white fragility over here.
If you don't think I'm an angry feminist, just ask my husband. That poor guy. That poor guy. Can someone please find out what the name of Robin DiAngelo's husband is?
But our resentment about sexism can cause us to not back people of color and actually collude with the benefits of whiteness to get a little bit ahead, right? Okay. So I'm going to end by
She's
just
ending.
bringing this question up so that I can preempt it, because I really don't like this question. And if this is the question you have right now, if you're white and this is the question you have right now, then I have one for you.
Can we start a Save Jason hashtag? See, Jason, we're so sorry. We're so sorry you're in this position. We're sorry, Jason. There's always hope. Don't give up, Jason. Life is still worth living.
What has allowed you to remain ignorant about how to interrupt racism? Why in 2018 is that your question? And that's actually a sincere, challenging question. Because if you really start to map it out, you'll have your answer. So I want to share what could be under that dock if we had a transformed framework. But before I do it, I want to give an example.
He's 11 years younger? He's 11 years younger? I have so many thoughts about this. I really do. I have so many thoughts about how Jason probably just needed an irrational... Probably... Okay, let me just say this. I have so many thoughts about the relationship that Jason has with his mother. And Jason, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that this was your experience in this lifetime.
Of a moment of racism that I recently perpetrated. Okay? And instead of reading it from the book, it is written in the book, but it's easier for me to just say it. I used to be the director of equity for a large nonprofit. And on the equity team were 3 people, myself, the co-director, and the executive assistant. And Deborah and Marsha were Black women. So there were 3 of us, 2 of us were Black, 1 was white.
Robin is about to tell the story about how she was constantly racist to her coworkers, and her coworkers were always very nice and forgave her. I bet that's the story she's about to tell.
And we hired a consultant, the organization hired a consultant to come in and design the web page and or the website. And so she was going around setting meetings with all the departments to find out what we did so she could build each department's particular page. So she scheduled a meeting with the equity team, And it was 3 in the afternoon, and we went in, and it turns out that she was also a Black woman. I will call her Angela. And right away, she had this survey that had lots of questions about what we do. But it was the afternoon. I found the survey kind of annoying, and it was tedious, and it didn't really speak to what we do. So I kind of shoved it aside. And I said, let me explain. We go out into the different satellite offices, and we lead, racial justice trainings. In fact, we went up to the far north one recently, and Deborah was asked not to come back. I guess her hair scared the white people. Make this little joke, right? Because Deborah has long locked hair. The meeting ends.
Wait. Hang on. Apart from Robin about to confess that she was a racist, which is exactly where she's going, I know exactly which story she's talking about right now. Apart from that, why was one of her employees asked not to go back to a satellite office? What did one of her employees do that was so bad that they were literally asked not to return again?
And I wish I could tell you that I realized what I had said, but I didn't. So a few days later, Marcia came to me and said, Angela was really offended by that joke you made about Black women's hair. And, that I know better, right? And so I immediately understood and said, thank you for letting me know.
See, this is when I told you, this is when Robin admits that she's a racist and that she constantly makes racist actions against her coworkers and they always forgive her. I told you.
And so I followed a series of steps to repair that. And the first thing I did is I called a friend of mine, another white woman named Christine, and said, I need to process something with you. And, I vented my anxiety, my embarrassment. And then when I kind of got that off, we put our heads together and it's like, let's think about how your racism was manifesting in that meeting. Get really clear.
Yep.
Okay. I got clear and I felt ready to then come back to Angela. So I called her and I said, would you be willing to grant me the opportunity to repair the racism I perpetrated towards you in the meeting last week?
Ding, ding, ding.
And she said yes. Now, she could have said no, and I was prepared. In fact, I thought she was going to say no. I thought she was going to say, whoa, are you a hypocrite? And if I could not hold that, then I was not going to be making an authentic repair, right? So she didn't say no, however. She said yes. And so we met, and I said, I just want to own that racism and that joke. And so we talked about it, and she basically said, I don't know you. I have no relationship with you. I have no trust with you.
Wait. So one of Robin's employees, because remember, she was the director of equity at this company, and she's talking about how one of her employees, and one of her employees is telling her, I don't know you. I have no relationship with you. I have no trust in you. That's a bad manager, Robin. One of your first jobs as a manager is to build trust with your employees. Why didn't you do that, Robin? Why didn't you especially do that with one of your Black employees?
And I do not want to be joking about Black women's hair in a professional work meeting with a white woman I don't know. Right? So I just want to be really clear so that white folks understand that piece of it.
Oh, wait, no, this was the website designer. I'm wrong. I'm sorry. This was the website designer.
The woke
Still
white person and making fun of
racist.
the white people who didn't get it. So I was making that move. I was credentialing myself. So I owned that. And then because I knew that Christine and I, as two white people, would probably have missed some things, I said, Angela, is there anything I missed? And she said, yes.
So basically, she had a meeting with a consultant as the director of equity in this organization. She had a meeting with a consultant that the organization had hired in order to have the consultant tell her, as the director of equity, all the ways in which she was a racist. Okay.
That survey you so glibly shoved aside, I wrote that survey. And I have spent my life justifying my intelligence to white people. Okay, that was just like because I immediately got it. Never occurred to me she wrote the survey. Looking back at how I just dismissed it. So I owned that.
So Robin is admitting she's a racist. Okay.
And then next step I took was, is there anything else that needs to be said or heard that we might move forward? And she said, yes. the next time you run your racism at me, I want to pause right there. Notice that she didn't say if. She basically said, if we're going to be working together, I know you're going to run your racism
Hang
at
on,
me
hang
again.
on, hang on, hang on. This didn't happen. This did not happen. You want to know how I know? Because consultants who are hired by organizations don't go in and tell the organization that is paying them money that they are racist. I'm sorry, she's making this up. This didn't happen. I don't believe this for one
So
red
the next
second.
time you do it, would you like your feedback publicly or privately?
Oh, please. You are such a liar. Everyone, Pinocchio in the chat. Pinocchio, 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 Pinocchio in the chat, please.
Yeah, I loved her for that. And I said, oh, publicly.
liar.
Definitely, right? Like, I think most white
Liar.
people would have said, oh, God, no, privately. But
Liar.
it's really, really, I told her it's really important that other white people see that I am not free of these patterns. I run them less. I'm not defensive when I run them. Notice I never explain my intentions. I have very good repair skills, but I have these patterns. And it's important that other white people see that and that I have the opportunity to model
Liar.
non-defensiveness. And so anything else? Nope.
Liar.
Good. Yep, let's move on. And we moved on. And actually, there was more trust there. One of the things she said to me is, what you did in that meeting happens to
Dogfish
us
Head
every
is
day.
good.
This, what you're doing right now, this does not happen. Thank you. What I'm looking for is, where can I go with you?
Oh, Cindy got a
Right?
Kate
Repair.
icon in there.
So I want to end with what could be under that dock
All right.
if we had a transformed.
Guys, here's what we're going to do, because we're wrapping up this presentation, and what I want to do next is I want to take some call-ins, which means that you get to come on the stream and we get to have a little chat about what we just watched. I want to hear your opinion. I've just started doing these. I'm blatantly stealing the idea from Gothics because I had such a good experience with doing call-ins on the after party for the debate we had the other day that I saw it was such a cool idea. I want to implement it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the link to join into the chat. Now, only 10 people can join at one time, and I'm not sure how many I'm going to take, but I'm just going to put it into the chat, and we're going to see how it goes. And you can join the stream. You don't have to turn on your camera on. I definitely prefer if you do, but you don't have to. And we can have a little chat about what you saw in this presentation. So I'm going to put the link in the chat right now, and then you can join, and we'll finish up the presentation while people are joining. All right, ready? Go.
Frame, because we can't get where we need to go from where we are right now. Right? Being good or bad is not relevant. Right? Racism is a multi-layered system infused in everything. Whites have blinders on racism. I have blinders on racism. Racism is complex. I don't have to understand it in order for it to be valid. White comfort maintains the racial status quo.
I hope you're not you're noting the timestamps of the clips you want. No, I'm not. I'm making a mental kind of catalog, but don't worry. I've got it under control.
Comfort is necessary and important. I must not confuse comfort with safety. I am safe in discussions of race. The antidote to guilt is action. I bring my group's history with me. History matters. I might see myself as just an individual.
Guys, I've pinned the link to join to the top of both YouTube channels if you want to come and join to do a call-in.
The question is not if, but how. Nothing exempts me from the forces of racism. Whites are unconsciously invested in racism. I am unconsciously invested in racism. I want you to imagine if white people internalize this framework, how revolutionary it would be, right? Bias is implicit. I don't expect to be aware of mine without a lot of effort, right? Feedback from people of color indicates trust because it is a huge moment of risk across a deep history of harm, right? Feedback on white racism is really difficult to give. How I receive it is not as relevant as the feedback itself. You bring it to me upset, bring it to me upset. There are no rules for how you should tell me that I've harmed you. It takes courage to break with white solidarity. How can I support those that do? How can I back? If I'm not willing to step out and take a risk, how can I back other white people who do?
Corey, click the link at the top of the chat and come in and question me in person. You can do a call-in. I invite you, Corey, to come and do a call-in.
Instead of tearing them down. Finding that one thing that I said in this talk tonight that you can grab onto so that you don't have to look at yourself. Given socialization, it's more likely that I am the one who doesn't understand the issue. Can you imagine if white people were coming from that place? Racism hurts, even kills people of color 24/7. Interrupting it is more important
Corey,
than my feelings.
come and do a call-in and we can have this conversation. It is pinned to the top of the chat in the YouTube right now.
Ego or self-image. Thank you.
All right. Robin is done. That is about all I can take. Guys, if you enjoyed this presentation from Robin DiAngelo, then you might want to join my locals. Or if you enjoyed my epic takedown of Robin DiAngelo, I should say, not the presentation, because no one enjoyed the presentation, okay? No one enjoyed the presentation. But what you can do, if you enjoyed this, is you can join my locals, kb.locals.com. The information is in the description below. All right, we're going to do some call-ins. And I've pinned the call-in link to the top of the chat on the YouTube channels, and I'm just going to take you in the order in which you're joining, and we're just going to go from there. And the first one, I want to hear what you thought about the presentation and any other thoughts you might have. The first one is Patrice, one of my locals members, I believe. Hello, Patrice.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey. First, thank you, Karlyn, for everything you do. This is great.
Thank you.
We all got to support each other, everybody, all of us bodies here. Which is crazy. Usually when you say bodies, you're talking about dead people. So maybe they ought to not.
It's one of the most annoying terms that they have from my perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, talk about dehumanizing. So I just want to say, get ready, people. They're going full steam ahead. Biden administration pushing this full steam ahead. We need to be ready to fight this. You got to be ready to stand up at work, stand up in your communities, just with love, of course, right? Like
Yeah.
this isn't going to do anybody any good.
Absolutely. I agree with you that we have to do it with love, or we have to understand that that's the place that we're coming from, because the thing of it is like, sometimes we have to be a little bit aggressive in this fight. Sometimes we have to play their game and we have to play by their rules, but we're doing it because we have principles. And I do think that it's important not just to backlash against this stuff, but in order to do it to achieve principles that we want, like free speech, free exchange of ideas, the free market of ideas, being able to dissent to ideas we disagree with, things like that.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah. Everybody stay strong. This isn't over. It's not over.
All right. Well, thank you, Patrice. I appreciate you joining. All right. Next up, we have Catherine. Hi, Catherine.
Oh, hi. I was almost not expecting. So this has been around for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
And like with the BLM, they don't really care about Black people at all. I mean, that's pretty transparent.
Mm-hmm.
It's so they do like the prayer worship things with Black people. They say people, they're worshiping Black people, but it's actually even worse than that. They're worshiping Black people's suffering.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I mean, I think that you're bringing up a really good point, which is the god of critical race theory is racism.
Mm-hmm.
They're not trying to solve racism. If they solved racism, their entire movement would be over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and like, especially the women, what it is that what they want is to maintain their hegemony.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not like they're like with like, what was his, George Floyd?
Mm-hmm.
They say, George Floyd was, a martyr. No, in actual fact, he was more like a paschal sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a sacrifice to their hegemony.
Yep. I mean, in that whole thing, it wasn't really about George Floyd. George Floyd was nothing more than an opportunity. They took advantage of a tragedy, and I do think it was a legitimate tragedy. And we can argue about whether or not he overdosed or what happened, and that's a perfectly fair discussion. But it was a tragedy. It was, and they took advantage of it to forward their political movement.
So yeah, that's it. Yeah, they want, and then of course there's the owner of the CEO, I guess, of BLM. She's like bought like 5 houses with the money sent to her.
That's very true. I actually don't think she's the CEO anymore. I think that she was ousted, but no, it's absolutely true that these people were not collecting all that money for altruistic reasons at all. But at the end of the day, critical race theory, and I said this in the discussion, but we've been going for almost 3 hours at this point. Critical race theory is not about race. It's only about power. It's not about fixing racism or creating more fairness or justice. It's only about power. That's it.
Well, you did improve the life of one Black woman,
Yeah, I guess. All right, Catherine. Well, thank you for joining the stream. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. See you.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Next up. Oh, Ken was here a second ago. Ken, I don't know what happened to Ken, but if he comes back, I will add him at that point. In the meantime, hi, Golden Pine. How are you?
Hey, yeah, I'm doing good. I was just kind of I was thinking about, I wasn't even aware of how much, she was wondering about how guilty she felt herself to be. I'd heard about her before about her being, viewing herself as racist, but I didn't know it to that extent.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it is actually legit that Robin DiAngelo does actually think of herself as a racist. She says it all the time, and even like she tells more racist stories in the book even than what she told on here.
Yeah, I have like some liberal friends or family members, and I hear them at a party and they come out, at a birthday party, we're giving them free food, and they come out and he says, "Oh, well, you only hold that opinion because you're white privilege." And the guy himself doesn't have a job. He's just out of college, white. Where's his privilege?
Exactly. I mean, and like we all come from different circumstances in life. And I don't think that it's unfair to say that, white people don't necessarily listen, I am not marginalized for being white. I'm not. And I think that a lot of people are maybe taking the whole backlash to this a little bit too far, where like I'm not a victim for being white. I don't think anyone's a victim for being white. I think white people generally have it pretty good, especially if they live in the United States. But
yeah,
at
the
the same
privilege
time,
of living in America.
Yeah, that's the privilege that we have. We live in America. We live in the greatest, freest country in the world, and we can do whatever we want with our lives as long as we want to work for it.
Yeah, I try to be nice, and I try to, talk about, there's other things than white privilege, and white privilege is usually just used as a placeholder for majority privilege sometimes.
Yeah, I think that that's very true. I do. All right. Anything else, Golden Pine? All right. Well, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Guys, if you want to join the chat, if you want to do a call-in, I've got a couple more people in line, but if you want to do a call-in, I've pinned the link to join to the top of both my main YouTube channel and to Actively Unwoke. I am probably going to move this happy hour on to Actively Unwoke at some point in the future, not just yet, so you don't have to worry just yet, but if you want to join for a call-in, that's how you do it. All right, next up, we have Paxton. Hello, Paxton.
Hi, Karlyn. Yeah, I wanted to make a couple of points. If America is such a racist country, why does Vice President Harris have to go down there and tell the Guatemalans, do not come? Do not come. Okay. And another point that I wanted to make is when George Floyd was killed, in quotes, they elevated him to sainthood. And I think that is very wrong. That was a very wrong thing to do, because this guy had a rap sheet longer than my arm. And at one point, he robbed a woman who was pregnant and went in with his buddies and put a gun against the pregnant woman's stomach. Now, why would you want to elevate someone like that to a saint of your race?
Yeah,
And then the third point,
I agree
yeah,
with you on that point. Definitely. Go ahead.
yeah, and the third point is during the happy hour, it was mentioned that they are wanting to change the critical race theory nomination. And because basically people are catching on to it and the jig is up. So I'm just wondering what is rolling around out there that they're going to change critical race theory to.
So what I've seen is there is something called culturally responsive learning that I think is going to be another moniker for critical race theory. But really, anything that involves judging people by their skin color and making assumptions about entire populations based on their skin color is probably going to come under critical race theory. We need to be paying attention to words like power, equity, social justice. When those words are coming up, it's critical race theory. Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks for having me on, Karlyn.
Well, thank you for joining, Paxton. I agree. I appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye. All right. Let's see. Next up, we have Ella Rooney. Hi, Ella Rooney.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm concerned, so I want to run some by you.
Sure.
All right, there's a loud noise out at night and your emotions go crazy. There's a robber, there's a bear, and your brain has to go out and say, see, nothing's here. And then the emotional center is calmed down. Or there is a bear and you take care of it.
Yes. We hope there's not a bear, though.
We do, but I'm in Arkansas, so there could be a bear. But so you have this 7.8 billion people, and some are emotional and some have a brain. And then the healthy ones have both. So we're dealing with a faction that only has an emotional center, and they use every logical fallacy in the book, but no one taught anyone what a logical fallacy was. Mm-hmm. So I am grateful for, because you have the education and the knowledge and the experience to how do we not push them, but how do we create a place where people can start learning and experience? Because I do have a hatred. I hate haughty people, and I grew up with them from Massachusetts, and now I'm in Arkansas, and it's just a real loving place. And when they start talking about racism from up there, I just go crazy. But enough. What do you think of how do we put together this thing to help people come together?
Well, I mean, I think it's difficult because a lot of people normally oh, hang on. I'm gonna just mute your sound real quick because I'm getting some feedback. But normally, when we teach people these things, we teach it to them from an early age, and so we basically have an entire generation now that's been screwed out of being taught how to critically think. And so it is going to be a process to try to bring this back. And to be quite frank, I actually don't know if it's possible with the current generation. I really don't. And I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but so much time has been lost and they've been taught so much on the other way that the only thing that we can do now is try to move forward and reform our educational system so that we're making sure that people who are in the educational system now are being taught how to think and not what to think. But we're in a heap of trouble. I'm not going to lie. There is no one doing this. This has been the result of 40 years of a concerted effort to implement this system. There was a reason that they're doing this, and we can't go back and just snap our fingers and change things. Sadly.
I just want you to know I have 6 kids, and they are good kids, and they were raised in an environment where I drove the school nuts, because every time I filled out their paperwork and it said race, I checked other and I put human. And I've done that my whole life, and I've encouraged everybody else to do that. So we're ready to join in moving forward with a love movement, and not love like the emotional thing, like a real concern to bring us together. So thank you for your time, and keep on. Don't get depressed and go into the black hole.
Well, thank you, Ella Rooney. I very much appreciate it. All right. Thank you for joining. All right. I still want to challenge Corey Scott in the chat, who's running his mouth in my chat. Corey, call in. let's have a conversation. It's pinned to the top of the chat you're in, my friend. All right, next up we have Daniel. Hi, Daniel.
Hello, Karlyn. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. What's up?
All right. So I remember way back when I was doing my undergrad in Russian, and it was a film class between the Soviet-style films, and we discussed a poem was "Small Children Should Not Go to Africa," and it basically states that there's monsters, witch doctors, alligators, gorillas, and it's very dangerous over there. But the funny thing is these students that never really gone anywhere else besides stay in the States, I explained to them that the cultural aspect of being white doesn't really pan out, because if you tell a British person that they're French or a French person that they're British, they'll basically laugh in your face. So, I mean, the whole amalgamation of trying to bunch all white people into one group doesn't work out. So, I mean, in itself, she was just talking circles and being what's the word? Fallacial, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it was big. She was just circle jerking the whole crowd, basically. And my question is what's the racial breakdown of her crowd? I mean, to understand, that's another question, even though it said Seattle. So that's a bigger question to ask.
Yeah, Robin DiAngelo almost exclusively speaks to white people. And in fact, like I think I said this at the beginning, but her forthcoming book that is coming out, I think relatively soon, it's a book about how liberal white people aren't doing enough to fight racism. So her crowd is white people. It's guilt tripping white people. And she knows that. She knows exactly where her bread is buttered.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad to see that she hasn't incorporated or has like either other keynote speakers come on and speak before her that are people of color.
I mean, that's actually a really good point. She could be elevating more people of color. And frankly, she should be, because she's made a lot of money off of this industry that is entirely built on teaching people they're racist.
Well, other than that, those are my points that I had. I'm a local supporter, but keep up the good work.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your support on locals. We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye. All right, this is going great. Okay, Mark. Mark, you're up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Yes, no, 1 second. Hi, see me
There
there?
you are. Yeah, you're good.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm all right, I just find it very, very astonishing that people get paid, according to you, thousands of dollars to spew that kind of nonsense in universities. That's astounding to me. Very astounding.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
and that's all of corporate training too. Like, I mean, my base day rate for corporate training is $12,500 a day.
Okay.
And that's, I mean, that's not, and I make not close to what Robin DiAngelo does. So that's base corporate training in general. So they make a lot of money. Yeah.
And okay, well, I'm not from the States. I am from Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay.
But why I say that is that I really, really love what you guys do, as in fighting this critical race theory stuff.
Thank you.
Seriously, you guys need to keep up on that. Keep fighting that, because it's not a nice thing at all.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm going to keep it up. And I love the Caribbean. The Caribbean is one of my favorite places. I'm so dying to come back to the Caribbean. I cannot wait. Oh, yeah. I love my husband and I love cruises. So we love going down to the Caribbean and going to all the different places. And, you know, we always have a great time. And so I cannot wait to be back in your neck of the woods at some point, hopefully very soon.
Well, at the moment, I'm not sure that's possible. But right now, we're on lockdowns galore.
Oh, how is life there, just in general?
Well, right now we're on from between 9 p.m. to 5 p.m. 5 a.m. we're on a curfew.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Just imagine every Democrat state, but for the whole country.
Oh my God. I am so sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, keep your head up. You know, it's gonna be fine. We're all gonna get out of this eventually, hopefully.
I hope so too.
And you guys have a beautiful country, and I cannot wait to go back again someday.
Okay, then. Well, it's nice talking to you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mark.
Take care.
All right. Let's see. Greg, you're up next.
And I'm not seeing my picture, but I was
That's
hoping
okay.
that thing would come on. Well, I want to thank you because you inspired me. I just spent a whole lot of time over the last 20 hours studying the history of critical race theory or critical theory in general. And it's really being battled a lot in our churches. There's a Presbyterian seminary that is now spouting this nonsense. So it's really deep into our culture at all sorts of levels. What I learned was it has Marxist roots, and it started in the Frankfurt School, and all the terminology that we're using these days, it's all new. It's all based on previous terms. There's no real history because the worldview isn't based on anything solid. But it was quite a fascinating study, and I want to thank you. I remember you talking about your knitting club and the rally, and so I had a little bit of that journey here a moment ago.
Well, I appreciate that, Greg, and you're absolutely right, and you bring up a good point that it is in the churches. It is 100% in the church. The Catholic Church is probably the worst, but there are different denominations where it's into more or lesser degrees, and what people need to really know and understand that everything that we just watched is in every major institution in our society. It is in almost every major business. It is in churches. It is in the military. It is in the government. It is in the education system. It is K through 12 education. It's in higher education. It is in every major institution. And this is not a joke. And we can laugh and mock these trainings all we want, but this is real, and people have got to start taking this really seriously.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Greg. I appreciate you stopping by. All right, folks. Well, it looks like we have 3 more call-ins for right now, and then I'll be able to call it a day and go start my weekend. Right now, we have TPS. Hi, TPS.
Hey, Carl. So I was writing a comment in the chat, so I'm just going to say it really quick. The Woking Dead stole the phrase social justice from the Catholic Church.
Really?
The Catholic understanding of social justice is totally different. So if you see that in church documents, they stole that from us. So there is probably some woke priests out there and some woke churches, but it's not as widespread as you think, because when you see that in our documents, it means something else.
Okay, listen, I'm gonna ask, because I see Sarah Nicholas in the chat, and Sarah is like the best Catholic I know. She loves Catholicism more than anyone else I know, so she's gonna come on and call in a second. But I'm gonna question this because let's just be honest, the Pope is pretty woke. The
Pope is pretty woke, but he comes from South America, and they have a history of what's called liberation theology, which is like the wokeness of Catholicism from the 70s. But I just had a quick comment. I just wanted to say the difference between a racist and a non-racist is that if I saw something unfamiliar in the park, I would quash that, and I would be like, I feel slightly uncomfortable, but I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to talk to them. Like, my reaction would be to like force myself to smile and say hi. And honestly, it's not actually that, like, it's not difficult for me down here in Texas, because I grew up in Oregon, which is kind of like, Southern Oregon was the Klan capital of the country in the 70s. And it was mostly white. And now that I'm down here in Texas, like, seeing people that are different doesn't bother me at all. I'm just like, hey, how's it going? So I just don't get her. Like, I think people in the South might even be better at this and Robin DiAngelo going, it's about white people overtaking the conversation. I was like, oh my God, woman, you have no self-reflection at all. Like, what? And, and I'm so glad that I'm here in Texas, because 6 months ago, my baby girl was told, I can't be friends with you because you're white and white people are racist. My 6-year-old was told this by her best friend, who she never told me was Black. And I'm so glad that we're in Texas, because when I told the teachers, they were like, oh, we'll take care of it right away. There was no critical race theory crap. And I asked my baby, like, just a few weeks ago before school ended, is he still your best friend? And she goes, oh yeah, he's still my best friend. And you were telling us, be courageous, speak out. So I went to the diversity hearing for the school board, and I told them that story, and I was like, there's no way in hell. I mean, I said it politer than that, but I was like, the new seeing a race as bad has just come back around, and it's whiteness this time. And I was like, segregating my kids by race, stereotyping by race is unacceptable, and you better let me see every single curriculum, and you better not do this to my kids. And I got, like, it was a really diverse audience, and even the people who were obviously lefty, like, gave me a huge round of applause. So even people who lean left know that this is bullshit if you approach it in the correct way. And what the left does is they use stories. So instead of coming at them with facts, which are true, but only a small part of them is going to be convinced by facts, we need to start telling stories. And that's how we're going to win.
I completely agree with you. And I think that, I think that this is an example of like people have got to start fighting back. And what I want people to know too is there are a lot of people on the left that are not comfortable with this, but they're more uncomfortable being perceived as a Republican or being on the political right than they are speaking out against it. So I don't want people to think that the left is all their enemy, because they're not. I think a lot of people on the left see what's going on and they're uncomfortable with it, but they don't feel comfortable speaking up. So maybe we can start forming alliances based on those lines, even if you don't agree with anything else that they believe in.
Yeah, and after I reflected longer, because I was woke, I was the Woking Dead just like 6 months ago until the New York Times published their tweet that said Biden was never a predator except when he was a predator. And I was like, I'm done. I'm not woke anymore. I'm done. And I started realizing that these people are talking about identities that are actually my identity, like not being heterosexual, growing up with gender confusion, things like that. Like, they're speaking for identities that I hold, and I happen to be Catholic, so obviously there's teachings about that and how you should live, and I happen to be bi, so I chose a husband. But whatever, like, they're speaking for me. They're speaking for people with different sexualities. They're speaking with people who had gender confusion. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to claim that identity, even though I'm living the Catholic teachings. Like, I'm going to claim that identity and say, you don't speak for me. 67 to 90% of us grow out of this gender crap. You don't speak for me. My culture is not white. It's English and German and Catholic. And if you think that Catholics have the same culture of the WASPs in this country, you're crazy. Like, it's totally different. So I'm like, I'm not going to let you speak for me anymore. I'm going to claim that identity that you're trying to steal from me. And I'm going to say, I have a queer identity, even though I'm living hetero, and you do not speak for me. You don't speak for my gender confusion, because I grew out of it. So stop medicalizing kids, because I am one of those people. And we just need to claim that. We need to say, okay, if you're only going to listen to me if I have this identity, then I'm going to claim it if it really is part of my identity. And the reason I didn't claim that stuff before is because I don't think of myself that way. I'm a person. Like, I don't think of myself as, oh, I'm bi. Oh, I was gender confused. I think of myself as like me, And they break people up into little pieces.
Absolutely. And they'll, I really do. I've thought a lot about, like, if I was growing up now, if I was in my teenage years now, I am almost certain they would have tried to medicalize me and convince me I was trans. Really. Because I just wanted to play with the boys. I wanted to do all the boys' sports. I didn't want to do girly things at all. I had short hair. I dressed like a boy. I really think that if I were growing up and going through my teenage years today, people would have tried to convince me I was trans and would have medicalized me. And even worse, I think I would have bought into it, because that's the person I was when I was 14 years old.
Exactly. And I don't get these people, because they're like, I feel non-binary because I'm not female or male. And I'm like, oh my God, you need a dictionary. Feminine and female are not the same thing. Like, what? Anyway, there's other callers, so I'll let you go. But I'm so glad I got to hop on the show today. That is awesome.
Well, thank you for joining TPS. I appreciate the support. We'll see you soon. All right. Next up, we have 2 more callers, and next up we have Ron. Hi, Ron.
Hello. How are you, Karlyn?
Good. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Love your show. I'm not going to lie. We found you through Gothics and that nice little debate that you did the other night, if that's what you want to call that.
Did you think I was too aggressive, or did you think I was just right?
I would have, had it been me, I think I would have probably gotten a lot more aggressive. So not aggressive enough. My wife, she goes, "Oh, I know who Karlyn is." She goes and talks with schools and different stuff, and I really like her. And then we were watching earlier, and she was critiquing, going, "There is absolutely no research. There's no study." It's like, no, there's no research or study to support any of these opinions, and that's all it is. It's man, and then she's been going, or as she's discovered Gothics through me over the last week or so, she started doing a little bit more studying. She goes, "I don't remember this even 2.5 years ago," or we have a 21-year-old and an 8-year-old son. And she goes, "I don't remember any of this with our 21-year-old. It's like, it wasn't as prevalent. It was there, but it wasn't as prevalent. But now we're watching everything that is coming through with the 8-year-old, because especially them being stuck at home this last year, or last year and a half, we have much more visibility, and I'm not looking forward to them going back to school.
Yeah, and you're gonna have to pay real close attention. I'm not gonna lie to you. It is bad. There is not, every once in a while we'll come across it. There was a school in New Hampshire, and I won't name the town they're in, Bedford, but we accused them of doing critical race theory in school, and I had heard from several parents that they had, and Bedford came out and was like, no, we're not doing critical race theory. We don't know what you're talking about. You are making all this up. Well, guess what? Then we found a whistleblower that knows, that absolutely confirmed, yes, they're doing this stuff in all their classes and they're lying to you. So the schools are lying. They're trying to do their best to cover it up. And I have yet to find a school that is legitimately not doing it in some respect. Now, not all teachers are doing it, but most of them are.
Yeah, it's just crazy. And then I had a blessed childhood. So my dad retired from the military, grew up, lived all over the country. I don't remember racism as a kid because I was always with the other military kids. They were kids. It's like, yeah, going through, as I know a couple callers ago, talking about what's your race, human. It was for us, or what's our nationality? It's like, we're American. And they're all, well, that can't be your nationality. When we were living in Philadelphia, it's like, yes, we're American. Well, what kind of food do you eat? And and we started listing off all these different types of foods from all across the world, and they're all, well, that's not right. It's like, no, we're American. And even to this day, anytime anybody asks me for ethnicity or anything like that, it's like, I'm American. My family came, we fought, we're American.
Yeah. And people are just not learning that in the schools anymore. And it's really, it's so upsetting to me that children are not being raised to understand the history of this country. And frankly, how miraculous it is that this even succeeded, because it is miraculous that this thing succeeded, that this little experiment succeeded for as long as it did. And hopefully we can make it go a little while longer.
Absolutely. But anyway, just wanted to hop on and say thank you for everything you're doing with everything. Cheers.
Cheers
and yeah,
to you, Ron.
I'm enjoying the after party kind of stuff here with your inviting the open mic for people to hop on, and it's kind of fun to see. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ron. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye. All right, we have one more guest for today, and that is one of my locals members, my favorite Catholic, Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Sarah, you're on mute. Maybe. Sarah, you want to? There you are. Hi, Sarah.
Oh, for those who don't know, I've got a bit of a froggy throat at the moment. I'm just waking up. I'm in New Zealand, so this is Saturday here. What's it called? So yeah, I actually want to give a bit of a heads up to people what's happening in New Zealand in relation to CRT. The government is pushing for it like you wouldn't believe, and here's the good news: there's been a shitload of pushback, And the biggest group that's been pushing back are the Maori. It is so, and because I've come to the conclusion I'm never ever going to represent the Maori people. They can represent themselves. They've got the capacity, and it's same with them. Black Americans and everybody. We individually we represent who we are and our family and our friends. And so I just, as I say, don't give up, because that's the last thing we ever want to do. This is for our nieces and nephews and grandkids and children. So yeah, so it's all good.
Absolutely. Well, Sarah, thank you for joining me from all the way from New Zealand. I appreciate that, and I love and adore you, and that's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, that's all the call-ins we have for today. TPS and one final super chat. Medicalization, normal child development of gender confirmation. Children is surgical convenience therapy, I think. Yep, that's absolutely correct. All right, guys. Well, if you enjoyed Happy Hour today, again, I do hope you will join me in my locals. You can join as a free member. You can join for $5 a month. You can join as an annual member for $50 a year, and you get 2 months for free. Locals is the best, most sane place on the internet. And if you don't do that, I will be back here on Friday, next Friday at 3 p.m. and we will do another happy hour. All right, guys, I hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you soon.